I'm gonna wait for Ashley. Ashley.
Oh. She put it on her rate?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shall we say 4 places then?
Yeah.
Brittany, Ashley. That's all we need. Should we?
Well, I've got some stuff written down.
Hello. Yeah, yeah.
Really? There's one agenda, kind of see where you're at.
Yeah, thank you.
One.
I'll take one. Thank you. Back to you.
Did you guys look forward? You guys want to worry?
Oh, Donna.
Get one of these. Maybe the last one.
Let's get the sunrise. Well, I'll do that. I'm sorry. No. She's just and embarrassed.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
There's some chairs up front. I
Oh, it's underneath your stuff.
Yes.
This must be their agenda.
No, that's just information.
Oh, okay.
You took
Okay.
notes.
Okay. I'm still mad at you.
Huh?
I'm still mad at you. Because you're not running.
What?
Nothing. I mumble a lot when I'm disgruntled.
Just more scheduled. We're gonna move this.
Give you?
What?
I'm gonna have a smile on my face. You're gonna be all positive.
Yes.
I'm gonna sit up a little higher. They told me I was sitting too low. I'm way high. Well, I know. I says, well, I had to sit low to equal the same height as you.
What does that mean?
All right.
Rock and roll, baby.
Hold on.
I'm gonna go with this, but
My computer's being slow.
Yeah.
hot mic.
Sorry, guys. Just having to slow my
And use it for personal use?
No, I just didn't turn it on last meeting. So it doesn't.
If you want candy, just let me
I
know.
went home now without. I'm not my own. Stays with
I'm all decided. You're undecided. I'm very decisive in what I want.
Yeah. Absolutely. She's sure. She's not here, so.
Hey.
Find me online.
Yep. So, thank you so much for your patience while I got my computer up tonight. I want to welcome you to our regular session of the UNT County School District School Board. If you can please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The first item on our agenda is to adopt our agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make that a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. Okay, second by Jenny. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda items. We have our minutes from September 6, 2022, and the payment of the bills. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Down to our presentations, we have our district assessment scores for our presentation tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Sign up. Madam Chair, members of the board, it's good to be with you this evening, and tonight we're going to discuss briefly just about our accountability reports. Let me give you a little bit of recent history about accountability. It's part of ESSER, federal requirements. It builds into all the requirements that flow down to the states, and then ultimately flows into the LEAs, or the local educational agencies. And part of that is that the state sets a criteria for accountability for the schools, and then through mostly, as far as elementary, YTOP assessments play a big role in our accountability piece. There's a small percentage under ELL that's part of that as well, and Doug will talk about some of the changes at high school and the alternative high school as we get into the report. For the last 2 years, we have not had accountability due to COVID. So it's been, and that was something that came down from the Department of Ed at the federal level, and that was across the board, that they kind of lightened that requirement for those 2 years due to a lot of reasons. Kids were not in school. There were some kids who, even though we've been in school for 18 months, they just went back to school after that period of time. So that was the reason for that. This is the first year that we've had an accountability report that has come from the state, and that's the beginning of what we have. This is an overall picture of our accountability rating. You can see on the top you have in achievement, that's a percentage. So you have greater than or equal to 51%, and that's a cumulative score. So that's reading, or ELA, math, and science in 4th grade, and that's part of the elementary. That goes through science, it's 8th grade is that correct?
Yeah. 3rd through, at each individual school. So when you look at EMS, DMS, for example, that's all 3 grade levels, all 3, the 2 tested areas in 6th and 7th grade, the 3 tested areas in 8th grade. We had science in 8th grade.
Yeah, it's 3 through 8.
Yeah.
And that's the assessment. The science, which I was referencing, is only 4 and 8. So that's where that builds in and is part of that achievement. Growth is a determination, and we'll talk a little further about what that growth matrix is, but really growth of students based upon a comparison with kids across the state. And then we are given a percentage, and you can see if you're 48% or between 48 and 59%, that's considered meeting. If you're beyond 60%, you're considered to be exceeding. And then you can see the equity score, which is there, and you can get an idea of that. That is greater than 48, and less than 60 or beyond 60 is exceeding. And then ELP is ELL, and you can see what our scores were there. The blue represents exceeding. Green represents meeting. Yellow represents partially meeting.
So
Okay?
are those
It
kids
means
like
actually-
coming in later, the DMS and EMS kids, are they like, is that why we're meeting?
We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. I'll go through the elementary just across. You can see Aspen is a partially meeting school. What happened there, again, they take that as a composite score. They take that composite score and then they give you a rating. Because of the growth matrix and not meeting at least that 48% with the students in that growth matrix, and again, we'll talk more about growth here in a minute, then they were considered to be a partially meeting school. You can see, however, they were exceeding with the ELP. ELP is only 5% of that overall percentage, okay? When you look at Clark, Clark was meeting in achievement, in growth and equity. You can see the score. So in each of those cells was the actual score that was given on the report itself, and the 60 there was an exceeding score. North, partially meeting, you can see the achievement. They needed to hit the 51%. They had 48%. Growth was 51, 54, and 68% as far as ELP, and that being an exceeding score. And then you can see UME was meeting in each of those areas: achievement, growth, equity, and ELP. So I'm going to stop there. And Nazia, do you have any questions before we go beyond that? Again, this is quick. We can answer any questions that you have if you have questions at this point.
Why is there such a difference between EMS and DMS? As far as the ELP on the far right, 15 and 18?
It starts with the total number of students that fall under the English language proficiency. The overall number of students is different at the two schools.
So it's based on the number of students only?
So what happens is if you have a lower N or a fewer number of students and fewer students, or you could even have, the idea is the smaller the number, the higher the percentage, or the lower the percentage, right? So it's the whole scale issue. So to Chris, right, we were going to talk about, so there's a scale that starts at kindergarten and goes up through high school in terms of what a student has to do to be able to, quote unquote, pass out of English language proficiency. They've reached a proficiency level that they're no longer considered English language learners, okay? And so what happens is when you get to the middle school, the content becomes much more diverse, right? Instead of just reading and math, speaking and listening, now you're starting to get into some of the other content areas, okay? And so are those numbers where we want them? No. We've reached out to the state in terms of what schools are meeting as secondary schools, and they're not able to give us any. So when we look at secondary schools and English language proficiency, very, very difficult to meet that expectation.
So is it like grammar and punctuation and stuff like
It's
that?
grammar, writing, speaking, listening. It's got conventions, it's built-in reading, comprehension. It's a pretty comprehensive assessment, and it's called the Access Assessment. And that assessment, as you can see, our students, especially in elementary, do quite well with that. But again, after a certain number of years, that really starts to add up for kids. There's a percentage of even our students who are English as a first language who may struggle passing that access test. That's how challenging it becomes as time progresses on. But what you see with this, we are one of the few states that do not have what's called an alternate route out of that distinction of a student being an ELL student and continuing forward. We're one of the few states that don't have that. We've discussed that with the state. They're looking at that and continuing to look at that, but we are striving to help and assist in that process as we move forward with it.
When are these these test assessments, are they in October of the beginning of every school year?
No.
Is that when they're done?
Not the access assessment, no.
Okay, what about the test?
The white-up is in the spring.
Yeah.
It's in the spring. It's a summative assessment that's given in the month of April for the most part and into May. Good question, though. We do have interim assessments that are tied to white-top, or that we give in the fall, and then we give another interim in the winter. Those assessments give us an idea of where kids should be in the spring. So they're assessing the spring standards during the fall and winter.
Got it.
And another thing with the middle school scores, some of those students were, they did pass out of ELP designation at the elementary level, but then we monitor them, right? That's part of the law. You monitor them for 3 years. So there are students that our ELL person has not worked with on ELL type activities, but yet they still count towards our ELL population. And if they happen to not be proficient, they count in that category and in the other categories as well. So you kind of take a double hit for that.
And it doesn't help when a student comes to us as a senior.
Sure.
Is that true or not?
A lot of people don't know this. Our foreign exchange students come in as ELL students.
Yeah.
They count in our high school total.
And sometimes we can take a hit on this score because of that. So by taking them into the district and the great experience that it is for our students and them, it sometimes can actually harm you in the matrix.
So the two partially meeting, how do we address those? Where they're
We're
both,
continuing to address that through our PLC process as far as the achievement and building on that. Continuing to look at our common formative assessment unit by unit, providing skill, standard by standard, skill by skill for those kids, and again, trying to build that up and move that forward.
Okay.
As far as the growth piece, the growth is a little harder. It's one of those things where it's based upon an algorithm, and you put kids into it, and all the kids who actually achieve higher than that 50%, then you get really credit for that. And there's a percentage of those kids then that meet that. And so that's a little harder. It's a little less of what you might consider to be hard and fast concrete.
Those are specific to math and
Math and ELA,
English.
yes.
Yes.
And really, you only get that score for growth in 4th and 5th grade,
Well-
and then 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Well, it's 4th through 10th grade according to...
It
state.
is, but you aren't going to get a 3rd grade one because you didn't have,
Oh, I said 4th through 10th,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
yeah, anything after that, then you would get a growth.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it's been a while since we've had the discussion because of COVID, but just a reminder, board goal is that all our schools are meeting these accountability expectations. District goal, which is all our buildings, same. So we work on these constantly. Hasn't been discussed in a while. These tests are interesting because they are moving targets. If you have a grade level that hits the achievement mark and achieves very, very well, that's exciting. But next year, you're not going to see the growth because they've already made that. So it's harder for that school and that grade level to hit that growth target because we achieved so much the year before. So we've never really been consistent with these. It's not a really good way to rank schools because it flows in and out based on where the kids test. You brought up a good point. If we have a student that's testing that's only been in our district for months, they do count either positive or negative based on their learning. If you have an ELL student that is new to our community, their skills may be high, but their skills may also be low, and we are impacted by those students too. So I think it's important that we maintain this goal, that we want all of those meeting. Actually, we want all of them exceeding, but we'll take all of them meeting. The individual attention we provide students is key to these. We know where the students are, we know what they need, and we're trying to provide what they need at their level. And that's probably the best message.
And Danny, your question is well taken. It's something, the conversations that the principals have had with their staffs, and really is a focus in each one of those buildings as we move forward.
So I got a question on the assessment tests in the spring. Now, are they based off of the previous year or the year that they're coming into?
You mean the
So
summer
like a
assessment
7th
is
grader,
for
if
the
the
year.
7th grader's coming into 8th grade, the assessment test in the spring is going to be what they should know.
The standards they should have learned in the
Standards,
7th
yes.
grade.
7th grade.
Yes.
Okay.
Good question, Dave.
So we have the high schools on a different slide because their indicators are different. We still have achievement growth, equity, English language proficiency, except for alternative schools. Our alternative schools are not held to ELP scores. So we'll start with Evanston High School. Achievement was at 55%, growth 45%, equity at 49%, ELP was at 15%, graduation rate at 88%, post-secondary readiness 68%, and then 9th grade credit accrual. 90% of our students earned the credits necessary to move on to the next grade. And so that's what that represents. Horizon, obviously, achievement growth and equity, they're held to that. Their numbers are different. They just look different. It's a different criteria, thank you. Post-secondary readiness, you can see that they were exceeding in that and 9th grade credit accrual. So, Yeah, and then you also have climate. So there's lots of different measures for alternative schools. I am super excited. This is the first time that all 4 of our secondary schools were meeting expectations at the same time. So we've had different schools that were partially meeting at different times, and so I'm super excited for that.
And when you look at the overall matrix as far as a meeting and a partially meeting, both of the schools that are partially meeting in the elementary were 1/10 of a point away from meeting. So again, what that means, I don't know, that's for your information. It wasn't like, okay, they were at the bottom of the barrel and hardly scraping. They were right on that edge and almost made.
I find it interesting that the below target number for 3 through 8 is 51 or less, and then the below target for the high school, 9 through 10, is 48.
Yep.
Why is there you would think that the below target score for all levels would be the same? Does that make sense, my question?
It does make sense.
So why do you think it seems like it's a different standard in my, when you get to high school, it's like it's a different standard.
Sure. So scores across the country, across the globe, it's different when you get to the high school level. Mm-hmm. I don't have the data in front of me. My speculation would be at the elementary level, you don't have as many things that you're focusing on as you do at the high school, where you're taking out your CTE classes. You have a lot more variety in the curriculum that you're exposed to.
Activities.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have the data in front of me. That's my speculation, but that's the nationally.
And the professional judgment panel that set these cutoff scores or cut scores, it was something that they did about 6 years ago as they met, and there was a lot of time that went into that, and they utilized the data at the time to set those cut scores, and they've just been set and maintained that up to this point. There may come a time when they go in and try to reset those. But that panel was representative of people from across the state, educational leaders, parents, community leaders, business leaders, who came together and helped to set and establish those.
Any questions on secondary measures?
Those are good questions. We could probably spend a lot of time. The growth measure, as you say, and I'm going to look at this, and it'll probably even be more clear after we read that. The student mean growth percentile, which is the MGP and reading math combined for all students in grades 4 through 10 as measured from the prior year. So what they do is they take all the kids, put them into the pot, so to speak, which is that, and they determine a percentile growth measure. And all the kids who go beyond that, you get credit for those kids. And the percentage of kids that are beyond that, that's how you get your growth measure.
So will we have nothing to compare to for 2 years? Did they not do YTOP during COVID at all?
No.
No.
So what they took would have been a growth measure from last year's assessment, but they took the assessment last year, but they didn't have an accountability score.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So it is.
So we did do them, we just didn't do the
Correct.
accountability score.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Questions on that?
Could you explain the algorithm? So, equity is basically the bottom 25% across the state. So those students that scored in the 25th percentile or below on the state assessment at each grade level go into what's considered the equity pool. Okay, and equity is a tough one because equity puts kids where they're competing against other kids, basically, right? So to meet the equity score means that you have to have at least 50% of your kids do better than the other kids that were in that pool across the state. And so, and why I say it's tough, the system for equity is built that 50% of the schools won't make the equity score.
Yeah.
Just based on the way the math works.
Yeah.
Okay?
And the growth piece is very similar to that. So that's why as Ryan talks about a moving target, really becomes difficult trying to to pinpoint what that is. So again, we continue to utilize our PLC process, continue to utilize our win time where we give kids what they need based upon their individualized needs and based upon the assessments that we have, and try and build those based upon the essential standards that we've identified. So. Achievement, again, achievement's probably the one that, hey, all of us can look and say, oh, okay, they did or they didn't. And that's the percentage at or above proficiency on ELA math. And again, in 4th grade it's science, 8th grade science is built into that as well. So, and then high school's at 10th grade, they build science in, or is it 9 and 10?
Nope, just 10.
And so that's really an easier one to look at. We can all kind of wrap our heads around, okay, what percentage of kids reached that or attained that?
All right, we talked about this already, just in terms of the ELP score. By definition, it's the percent of English learners that meet their annual goal for English language proficiency. And as we stated, it starts at kindergarten, right? And that's based on what parents put as the home language when they register their child in Power School. So if that home language is anything other than English, then that signals to our ELL folks that they need to test that student for English language proficiency.
Do you have students that come in as, say, juniors or seniors, that maybe they don't speak English very well? I mean, they just arrive in Evanston.
Yes.
How do you,
I
I know you do the best you can, but I mean, how do you have somebody that takes this student by the hand and says, let's see what we can
So we
fast track?
Any student that's designated as English language learner in any of our schools, K-12, is required to be with somebody that is ELL certified as a teacher at least 45 minutes a day.
Every day.
So that could be a classroom teacher that's ELL certified, or it could be our ELL person that's designated, they're scheduled for a class for that period of time. But each of our ELL students gets ELL support 45 minutes a day.
And currently, we have a couple of kiddos in kindergarten who speak Mandarin. And so we're fortunate to find somebody in our community who also speaks Mandarin. And so we're providing kind of a dual immersion kind of situation in an after-school program to try to meet their needs as we, Mandarin's one of those things, we kind of hear different Spanish words and maybe we can understand it a little bit. But Mandarin's something that's so far away that it's really challenging. But what's surprising is how quickly they're learning and how fast that's going. So again, we try to provide that, and if that were a sophomore or junior or senior, we try to do the same kind of thing. Find that. We're fortunate to live where we do because there's a lot of different people who have language acquisition that live about an hour away from us, and some of them are related to folks who live here, and we can access some of those resources. Just a summary, YTOP and the accountability measures are representing a moment in time and our lagging indicators. Again, that's a point-in-time assessment. These kids are given that assessment. It's some of those assessments, for example, 3rd grade math, took some of our 3rd grade kids, and these weren't our kids who were strugglers, some of our 3rd grade kids over 2.5 hours to take the assessment. And these are 9 and 10-year-olds, remember, and sitting them down and taking an assessment and having them work through that is, again, that's not an excuse, that's just what they're faced with as they strive to demonstrate their proficiency. ELA becomes a similar kind of situation. They're very long passages for those kiddos, and you're trying to build upon the comprehension. We'll bring the specific scores by school, by content area next month, as well as talk about the M-class scores, which is a different matrix, and give you an idea of what that will tell you about how our kids are doing as they acquire language and acquire reading skills. So, but again, it's important to keep in mind, it's an assessment that's given as a point-in-time assessment, and it's something that was given 4 months ago, 5 months ago. Schools utilize the information to set goals and reflect on measuring essential standard proficiency. Danny, hopefully that addressed your question. A good question, and something that we continue to strive to set our goals as a district and each individual school. And I'm just here to say we're proud of the work our staff and students are doing. And I know we have those focused areas, but I think our principals, our teachers, students are doing an incredible job. as they move forward and work through this, so.
You kind of answered my next question, but are you pleased with what you see?
Absolutely. I would love to see all green or green and blue
Sure.
all the way across there, but yes.
Yep. But here's the beauty of it, is that our teachers are still looking at that and saying, here's how we can get better. Here's what we can do to move forward.
Well, I think that's true, because last board meeting, we had third grade teachers in here, and that was a heck of a presentation for a heck of a program that they're doing at UME. That's, that's representative, I think, of probably what's happening elsewhere.
I think you're going to get another one here in just a
Here,
little
just a
bit.
few minutes. You'll probably enjoy it as much as you've enjoyed ours.
Maybe more.
Yeah, maybe more, yeah.
No pressure.
And I may be wrong, but from what I recall, these are the best colors I have seen my entire time being on the board. So this is wonderful.
Thank you for pointing that out. We appreciate that. And thank you for your time. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on down.
Okay. Now we're down to our PLC team reports. We have our K-5 PLC report.
Madam Chair, I'll introduce Principal Fessler. Just realized tonight also was a high school presentation, but we forgot they have parent-teacher conferences, so that's where they are. So they won't lose their turn. We'll bring them back later.
Come on up.
Can read as well. Great.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am so excited to introduce and welcome my specials team at Clark.
You are?
I'm Kimber Fessler. I'm the principal at Clark
Okay.
Elementary. Sorry.
That's right.
And so last month you got a picture of what the PLC work looks like in the classroom as a grade level teacher. And so these guys have done some fantastic work, and I told them it's time for them to share it with the world. So they're not super excited to be here, but they're super excited about the work that they're doing. So I'll have them come on up.
I'm Brian Richens. I'm the media director at Clark Elementary School. And about 6 years ago, when we first got together as a team, the PLC process was just getting started. And the challenge we had was to come together as a team with 4 different curriculums: music, science, PE, and media, and try to PLC around those curriculums. And we realized that was a impossible chore. So we went backwards and talked about what do we share in common that we can look at and assess and discuss as a team. And so the thing we share are students for 6 years, from kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we share, because we share those kids all through that process, we then turn to look at what are some things we can do to support our school problems across the board. And the 2 we came up with were student problem-solving strategies and teamwork strategies. So we, after deciding on the common that we had, which is the students, and a problem or a necessity for our school, then we were able to move ahead with our plan.
Members of the board, my name is Josh Cox. I teach science at Clark Elementary. And once we came forward with what we were going to do in terms of teamwork and problem solving, we came up with kind of how we were going to assess this. So soft skills are kind of hard to assess. So what we started to do is we started to put each grade level into situations where they were having to work together as a team to solve some kind of common goal. What we kind of come down to is they do things like they might build a Lego. We might give them a box of Legos or a box of snap circuits, and they have to put that together. And we're not so much focusing on how they build the actual item, but in what do they do when they come across frustrations? And that gives us a really good tool to start looking at. So when we do our pre-assessment, that's what we're watching. We're not watching how well they actually build the Lego or how well they do the activity that's in front of them. We start to watch, the things that are on the board. How are they communicating with each other? Are they yelling at each other? Are they closing off from their peers as they start to become frustrated? How engaged are they? So when they get frustrated, do they just roll around on the floor? Do they turn their backs? How well do they share ideas? How well do they take part in what they've done? Is it that person that just sat in the back and let the one kid do it all and then just sat there at the end? So we take a look at that. And then how well do they work together? So all of these things, we are then able to come back and take a look at. What we've found is Class Dojo is an amazing resource for us in that they have videos that we can sit down with the kids after we've taken a look at how well are they communicating and listening. They have 20 to 25 minute videos where we can watch, they're broken down into segments where they watch a scenario and then they've given us the tools to have discussions around what they've just watched. So we can say, okay, we saw that you don't communicate very well with your teammates. These are some strategies that you can use when we get back together. And then a week later, we get together and do the exact same activity that we just did. Again, never focusing on the actual activity, but focusing on, can we see that you've made improvements on the behaviors or how well you work as a team? What we've seen in that is by the time that they get to 5th grade, they're doing a lot of these things that as maybe as a kindergartner or a 1st grader or a 2nd grader, they couldn't do. And we've been doing this now for 6 years, and we're starting to see some really, really cool things come out of this.
I'm Jenny Hoagman, and I'm the new music teacher at Clark. So I got to participate in this as a para, and now I get to be an active member of it. After all these activities and interventions, now we put them together, and there are 3 major activities that we do at Clark that kind of is the culmination. One, we have the mini Olympics, where they're put on teams with peers that they're not normally with, and they have to work together as a team. Also, Clark Science School, we take them out to the bear ponds, and they, again, are put into groups, and they get to be together and learn and grow. And then the last is for our 5th graders, where they get to go to Teton Science School, where we hope that when they're with field agents there, that they can use these tools that they've learned. Now, all of that aside, what our major goal is to give these students tools and a tool belt that can help them not only at Clark, but hopefully in middle school and in high school and wherever their life takes them. We want them to be able to problem solve. We want them to be able to learn how to work in a team efficiently, and we want them to have success. Thank you.
I'm Troy Dino. I'm a physical education teacher.
You guys have questions for him?
I do, real quick.
Yeah.
So PLC, do you go across schools? I mean, do you, as science, you
Yes, as
you
a
have 2
science-
PLC teams? You have,
Where we meet
You
with
belong-
the 4 of us, but then
okay.
we also meet with our district
Counterparts.
teams and our counterparts and around the other
Okay.
schools. This is just something that we're doing here at Clark. Just
Okay.
because, again, trying to mesh music, PE, media, and science into something, our data doesn't align with what we're maybe doing on a day-to-day basis, but our kids are something that we definitely see and definitely share.
So you mentioned that you've been doing this for, I think you said 6 years, and you're seeing some results.
Yes.
Help me, what are some of the results that you've seen?
Well, so just last year, when we were starting to, Mr. Dimmel and I got the chance to work with 2nd grade all year long. At the beginning of the year, we were seeing kids rolling around on the ground. We were seeing kids just completely disengaged, screaming at their teammates as they were trying to work through this. At the end of the year, they were not only able to stay engaged with the process, but then also start to describe some of the emotions that they were feeling in that. One of the things, again, when we say we go into Class Dojo is they could really start to identify, just for an example, one of the things that we work on is they call, when you start to become frustrated, you're going into the dip. And it seems like the world is against you at that point. We had students actually come saying it out loud, I'm entering the dip. And they had to figure out how to get themselves out of that. And so when we say that we're seeing some success right there, that is a success. If they can not just, they can feel that they're becoming frustrated, they can feel that they're going down a path that maybe before they just would have completely shut off with. Now they have a tool to help them get out, and they can also feel what that's like, and to put that in words. And so that's a great success that we found.
The other part of that we see, so we start out the year with the mini Olympics, like Kimber, and Jenny both talked about, that the 5th graders actually draft a team from all grade levels, and then the 3 5th graders or 2 5th graders that are the leaders of that team pick a country, identify the facts of that country, and then have to teach the rest of the team about it. And there's a lot of work that goes into it as a 5th grade group. 6 years ago when we did this, most of my time, they do a lot of it in the media center. Most of my time was spent problem solving or conflict resoluting with the team captains, because we'd have all kinds of fights and people disengaging and they couldn't agree on stuff. And in the last 2 years, we've been able to focus almost entirely on the content. They know how to get along with each other, they know how to work together, they have strategies for when things are going poorly, compromise. So we're seeing that whole thing run a ton smoother, just because of the fact that they've been through these interventions.
Question, twofold question. Do you find, or how do you, is this whole process, how do you engage the parents with this process? And if you have a process in place, to bring the parents into this whole thing and everything else, do you find less success where parents are not involved with this, or more success where parents are engaged with this?
Honestly, we haven't worked towards engaging the parents much in this. What we have done, and the accountability that we've tried to achieve, is sharing with classroom teachers the skills that we're teaching in our process so that they can then use them in their own classrooms. So after we can complete a cycle, like Josh explained, then we sit down and say, okay, these are the skills that we taught, and we'll even share with these are the students that were taught those skills. So the classroom teachers are getting those, but we have not gone to...
Have you thought about doing that, or do you think it would be not necessary?
I certainly don't think it would hurt to share this
stuff out.
parents.
No.
Yeah.
It's just, for us, it's almost, a lot of it has been sometimes trial and error too.
Sure,
It's blown up in our faces just as many times as it's been successful. So I think as we get better and we start to see these successes, I agree, we need to start involving parents in some of this as well.
You might find even more success.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
For sure. It definitely would. I think so as well.
You guys want to talk about your...
So just with the proficiency scale, so right now during the mini Olympics, I have one of these laminated on every desk. So as the team meets together, they know what I'm looking for in their work. When they come together for the first time to do the activity that Josh described, we have a clipboard with the names of the students on it and these 4 things across the top. So we rate them on how they're doing during that process. We sit down then after that rating and decide, okay, these 8 kids need to have a mini lesson on engagement. These 8 to 10 kids need working together. Then we also work on, just like you've heard with the PLC process before, what enrichment can we give to those kids that were the rock stars, that really stood out as leaders. So we give them then their individual skills, whether it's in enrichment or remediation or support, and then make sure that they're clear on what they need to do, and then we come back like Josh explained and we move on. So this tool has been revised several times, but it is what we base their actions on the whole time. There's another part of it that's the problem-solving cycle as you scroll down. But this year we've chosen to focus primarily on teamwork in our school.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the team?
Are all the elementary schools doing the same thing with their?
They do it. They may not be doing this exact thing, but they do meet as a second PLC. And it'd be interesting to find out what they are doing as a building level PLC as a special student.
Over the course of this year, hopefully we'll hear from you.
Yes.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
That was your fear.
First.
What first?
Now you're done.
I'm not trying to apply
Okay, well, thank you so much for presenting tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Yes.
Hey, just a quick question for the group.
Hey, questions?
Whoa. Reeling you back in.
Okay.
Kind of emotional resilience time they have with the group, that they've seen it kind of that being productive time, and it hasn't taken away from the teacher's time to prepare for those Monday time with the kids on Monday mornings.
So the question deals with delayed start Monday. Do you see that time as effective, or is it taking away from you as teacher?
We actually use the late start Mondays as our day that we do both the assessment, the intervention, and then the post-assessment. We use Mondays, so we'll do 3 Mondays in a row when we do that. We're trimming down to 2 because we found that it is taking quite a bit of time.
I think what he was asking was the social and emotional, the new program that we've instituted. So that's not necessarily on your Monday mornings, but it's going to be, yeah, so
That's right.
I pay attention. I learned that in school.
That's just a secondary.
That's just secondary, so they don't do all the social and emotional.
Conscious discipline. Yeah,
Okay.
conscious discipline. And our counselor guides most of that. We try to help out, obviously, but she is the director of that.
Joel, did you hear that? The social emotional work is 612. They do conscious discipline at K5.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now
Thank
you
you.
Now we
now
can.
you can go. Officially, you can go.
Might want
Thank
to
you.
explain who that was.
This is Joel Weaver, one of our trustees that is out of town and joined us by Zoom. Just a voice and
Out of the box. Okay, we're going to move on to our discussion items. Our first item for our discussion is our Wsba Annual Conference Delegate Assembly in November in Casper.
Madam Chairs, we're always looking for attendees to the annual conference. I think it's very good. I've been promised, I don't know who they are, but Kevin has told us that the keynote speakers are excellent and you'll enjoy them.
Yeah.
So the conference, the delegate assembly starts at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, so we usually leave early in the morning. We come back Friday in the afternoon, hopefully avoiding any snow, right, Cassie?
Yes.
So you're going?
I'm not going.
It's a good conference. I went last year. And if we can get someone
My daughter's birthday.
of interest to go, or more than one, that'd be great. The only thing I see here, it talks about it as far as the voting, and that they will use the same electronic voting platform that they used last year. It didn't work. So it was by hand. I guess that's what they're going to use again.
So maybe the resolution will submit is have a different system for voting.
Yeah.
So typically, we send 2 delegates, 2 can go to that.
But only 1 votes, right?
Yes.
Yep. But you can
But more
go.
can go to
Yeah.
the conference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
conference.
Just 2 for the
And is it the
delegate
Ramco now?
assembly.
Yeah, so you've been,
I went last
are
year.
you troublemaker? Do you need a babysitter or anything?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you know.
I'll be more than happy to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's 2.
Yeah.
Anybody else that wants
need
to
a babysitter.
commit?
I might be able to,
Okay.
I'm just not sure of the dates yet.
Okay.
I'll take the time off.
We'll keep reminding you.
Okay.
So Krista, Joe, and Dan.
Great. Thanks for volunteering, guys.
Yep.
Okay. Yes?
Are you guys, do you want to designate a delegate, or do you two just want to,
Yeah,
you got a finger pointing to Dan?
yeah, because we already talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is all of the resolutions that'll be submitted and voted on we'll have a discussion on that
Yes.
before.
We will.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yep.
For sure.
Because how many resolutions do they typically do every year from the 48
It
districts?
depends. We've seen as little as 7 and as many as 25.
Well, I think this district has done, what, 2 or 3
2 or
already?
3 every year.
Yeah.
We have 1 this year. An important one.
Correct.
I never passes.
That never, yes. We're going to keep our fingers crossed for this. Okay, next item for discussion is our date change for the January board meeting.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we did recognize that the 3rd is the first Tuesday of January. 3rd happens to be a day off. We don't come back to school till the 4th. So we recommend that we change that till the 10th.
It's a day off for who? Not for me.
Everyone but you.
Everyone but me.
School is not in session, how about that?
10-4.
No December meeting.
No December vote.
Yeah.
You said no December meeting?
No, swearing in the new.
Oh, yeah, in December.
So this will come up, if you guys are okay, as board approval at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, next item on our agenda is policy IGDF, student fundraising activities.
Madam Chair, members of the board, do you want me to put this on the screen?
Please.
And I'll have to work with Joel to see if I can share with him. Maybe I can.
You should have that.
Okay. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the board, the first policy that comes up is IGDF, student fundraising activities. I'll try to make it a little bigger. What I've tried to do over the last, I think, 3 or 4 months now is to put all this together. Last month, if you recall, the board had some specific directions for me to put in policy. So that's what I've tried to do. IGDF deals with student fundraising activities, and I hope you can tell the bold, what's in black, is added. The strike-through is old, the old policy. And you can notice that at the beginning, most of it's been added. I went to policies similar to this from multiple districts to pick out what I think is what the board would like to get at. What I would like to do, if you guys are okay, is just to go through the fundraising and solicit the 8 points of what they mean, if you guys are okay with that.
Yes.
Students, groups, and organizations who engage in fundraising events on behalf of Humana County School District Number 1 or its school are required to get approval in writing from the school principal prior to the fundraising events. Not really new, just restated pretty directly.
Yes.
Major fundraising events that anticipate collecting more than $7,500 possibly are required to get approval from the building principal, superintendent, and possibly the board if the event engages in a large segment of the community. What's occurred in the past and what the board's concerned about is some of these large fundraising events that we know nothing about. So this actually, in terms of the charter also, they'll know what their anticipated, I guess, bounty will be. That needs to be explained. I have no clue how much money some of these fundraising events bring in. The board felt it was important that we do know how much these events are bringing in because of the impact it has on our community and all the activities and athletics combined. So that'll be part of the process to get approval. Is if you anticipate over $7,500. $7,500 is an arbitrary number. We can put it anywhere you want.
So when it talks about the engages a large segment of the community, is that like, say, wild cards? The
Yes.
football teams, the girls, I know the duck races. Is that like, what are we saying is a large portion of the community?
That would probably be interpretation. I would say the duck races probably are not.
I don't know how much money they bring in, but
maybe
you know.
even the wild cards are not. But some sales we've had where people have gone door to door, large portion of the community. I think part of that will have to be just decided as we go along with this. If you're raising $7,500, you're going to impact a large amount of the community. Golf tournament, don't think so. Selling gift wraps, chocolates. We've talked about we don't like those because typically they go door to door. But if you're going to wholesale the community for support, it needs to be brought to the board, needs to know about that. One of the things I would think would be is if we do move in a direction of a foundation and the board itself approaches community members for foundation donations, that would one that the board would want to know about. That's not for a specific activity or club. That's just fundraising for the district. I don't know if 7,500 is too high, but we can talk about that later.
Well, I just want to leave it to, a lot of it to our principals and stuff too. I don't know that we need to micromanage every, I don't know, I guess I don't know how much the fundraising really brings in each time, so.
Hopefully we'll know now.
Yeah.
So how much they anticipate. 3 extracurricular rated fundraisers at the secondary level require approval from the school principal and athletic director. Again, just so we know what's going on. 4 criteria for approval will be based on, but not limited to, the safety of students participating, percentage of collected funds benefiting students, the volume of fundraising events, the service provided, the product being sold, and consumer complaints. As you guys have brought to the attention of the board and the community, we've had complaints about some of our fundraising events in the past that we were not a part of approval. When I say we, as district administration. Not that we're not always going to have someone complaining, but at least we'll know how to answer their complaint when they call and ask. We've had businesses complain, and it's hard to explain how we're cutting into their business if I don't know kind of what the extent of our fundraising is. So hopefully we'll have more people informed than we've had in the past. Fundraising events that sell goods produced by companies for profit or events that compete unfairly with local businesses are discouraged. Gift wrapping, chocolates. We had an issue with Ice Melt and our community members. Those are direct competition of some of our local providers.
So does that mean you guys are just gonna monitor it better, or
Yeah.
we're not gonna approve those? What's,
I think it depends what their whole intent is. I've seen a class that wanted to raise funds to provide for Make-A-Wish that sold chocolates. It was one class, they basically sold them to their family members. They didn't raise probably more than a couple $100, but they felt good about it and they donated it to Make-A-Wish. Didn't really have a problem with that. Whole band selling chocolates, who's making the money is the chocolate company, not the kids. Different story. So I think our principals are going to have to be bold enough to say, yay, that's okay, no, that's not okay. Find something else. We like the service kind of fundraisers where our kids provide service and are paid for that. I think it's good for our kids, good for our community. And there's several of those out there too. But even some of those I wouldn't approve. Picking up trash at the dump was not a good activity for the money provided. Okay, and I went and helped on that one, by the way. 6, fundraising that is linked to school activities, clubs, organization must spend the funds in the school year the funds are raised. I think that's been very clear with the board, is we need to make sure those funds are spent in the year they're raised for the purpose they're raised for. That's part of the charter. We don't get fuzzy.
So then at the end of the year, when they have funds remaining, what happens to those funds if they don't spend them all?
What the charter allows is to start with a balance and end with a balance.
Is there a roof to that?
No.
You know what I mean? And if you raise
That's in the-
$40,000 and you
that's in this other
spend
policy we're gonna-
20 and you're going to carry
There's
20
no
over the
amounts.
next
I
year?
think what's appropriate, again, from what I recall as a booster parent, is we had $3,500 in the volleyball booster club. After we raised our funds, provided support, we had $3,500 at the end. We just left the same amount we came in. What's adequate? Who knows? Depends on what the charter says they want to spend it on.
Right.
But it's okay to have a balance to start with. Matter of fact, I think it's a good thing.
Good thing,
And then end with the balance too. The charter should explain all of that. If you have $10,000 in the beginning balance, I say spend it down to $2,000 or $3,500, depending on which group.
So this might be an off question with what we're talking about here. Of the booster clubs that we have, how many of them have charters, written charters and bylaws?
I don't know exactly the number. I would say most of them, but these policies we're changing now will make that better.
Okay.
The charter that we had in policy was so complicated. Most of it was PTAs and PTOs that had those charters because the national organizations have them. Booster clubs for activities typically did not have a charter.
Who monitors or manages that? Is that the athletic director and the
According to
building
old
principal?
policy, it was athletic director and principals.
Principals, huh?
The new policies put that squarely on CFO and our activities director. Combination. Remember the entanglements of this whole booster club. We can't get too much involved in how these funds are actually expended. That's because of the way we've set those up. Protects the booster clubs, protects us, hopefully protects the kids too. But we don't tell them how to spend the money. We just can say yay or nay to the fundraising activities.
But with the policies that we're designing right now, the concept is going to be at the beginning of the year, if the charter does what they need to do, the booster club does what they need to do, we know an idea of what they're looking at to fundraise for. You know, we want to do this fundraiser to get this money for this purpose, and that is, we know the plan.
Yes.
And so we're also responsible as administration to know the plan and then to keep to it. So we don't have to dictate what that plan is, we just need to know what it is.
And a lot of it's, and you'll see that as we get to the other policy, they're the charter's very simple now. We just need to know who's involved in the organization, your fundraising activities, your financial controls is something that's new. we just want to make sure as a charter, they have put financial controls in place. We can't monitor those, it's impossible for us. They need to have plans. The too deep is an easy one. 2 people count the money, 2 people deposit the money, it's never in one person's hands. Those are things that are recommended in KMBR. So those are there, but we expect that the boosters, and that's the way it reads, if you get from the first part of this, the purpose of this policy is to set limits on fundraising events to protect students and prevent the exhaustion of both the resources and goodwill of the school community. The board recognizes the importance of organizations within UNT County 1 being afforded the opportunity to raise funds or solicit financial support. However, those individuals or organizations who wish to use the name of the district or its schools for fundraisers share a responsibility with the board to ensure the safeguarding of public funds, accountability and compliance with state and federal laws and board policy. We need to work together to do that, and we can't leave them in the dark, they can't leave us in the dark. So.
On paragraph 8 of IGDF, says students are not allowed to solicit door-to-door, including business-to-business. On KMB, under the, we're going to get to that next, it says, it's scratched out, students are not allowed to solicit door-to-door. So this one says you can't do it, and then on this one we said you can't do it because we crossed it off.
No, I think what it says is, I put it in one place.
So it's not in 2 places, it's just identified as the one.
Yeah.
Identified as one.
Okay. Understand.
Again, duplication may be good, but these policies, especially KBR, is long.
Yeah.
KBMR is quite long. So I tried to, it's already in a policy. And this is the fundraising policy, specifically for that. KBM is something different. KBMR is the charter. Let's see. 9, any group organizing with the intent to provide support for, or promote, or raise funds for a school program, student activity, or student organization within a school shall register its intent by completing a charter as outlined in KMB and KMBR and submit annually to the athletic director. Yes?
7. I don't think you went through 7.
Fundraising for specific club travel lodging shall be equitably distributed among students participating in fundraising. Again, the board has expressed that's very important. So the students who participate in the fundraiser should benefit from that fundraiser, not those who have not participated in the fundraising. It's probably impossible to track that if you do that over multiple years. That's the concern. You spend it in the funds, you spend it in the year those funds were raised, you can do a part of that. I've seen this before. Many, many years ago, basketball team wanted travel sweats. So if they sold so many punch passes, what do you call those? Wild cards, they earned their sweats. If they didn't, they had to fill in the amount that they didn't raise. It seemed to work. Keep going.
Well, and then on 8, so it talks about including business to business. So like the basketball teams do a fundraiser, the red, white, and blue club, so instead of the banners all the way around the gym, they just get their names, the business names put on a list. So does this mean that they're not allowed to solicit those businesses to be?
What this is, and again, you guys tell me, what I put this down for is the idea of going downtown and going door to door, business to business, and trying to sell something that way. That's, to me, that's the door to door.
And there might be a city ordinance, I don't know, that prohibits
solicitation like that?
Door to door. I don't know. I've heard that there's a $100 or $200 permit that you've got to apply for.
The whole point of door to door is so you don't have a 16-year-old out in the community going door to door.
Right.
And same thing, it wouldn't be any different going business to business downtown. That's the protection thing I see. Those who seem to be the most successful contact individuals they know. They don't go door to door. They do it by phone, text, and pretty successful that way. I know every year I happen to buy 2 wild cards because they get to my wife or myself first, and we buy 2 before we communicate with each other. So that's what we meant by that. If you have a different intent, we need to probably put that in here.
Because like those kids are going just to business owners.
They
and
are.
asking
What they
for-
do is they assign out
different businesses.
To the players, if they know the owners or the businesses
I
or they have a
think that's
connection to
different.
it.
That's
That's a different deal.
Because I've had the opposite. I've had a business call me and say, hey, I want to donate to the school. Oh, great. You know, we can, what do you want to donate to, and we can work that out. So, again, you guys tell me, I think what you're talking about is you're going to someone you know. It's not a danger going door to door. It's not seen as panhandling. You're talking to individuals you know and businesses you know.
I know I think we've got the classics represented in here. Is the sponsor here?
I thought all these people showed up just to talk about cake.
Is the sponsor here or the?
Yeah, Candace is back there.
What? So the question I have is, how do you guys raise your funds? I mean, typically.
It's the same way. If we have like a golf tournament or any kind of fundraiser that we need businesses to help out with, it's the same thing. We never send the girls door to door to go hit people up.
Right.
We never assign them to the same business. It's always assigned on people who have expressed interest to support us in the past, and that's how we get going on it.
Thank you.
Okay, keep going.
Yep.
Does anybody have any problems with that wording, with that interpretation?
Okay, this one will be approved at first reading, so we have the whole month. 10, no money collected or of any kind may be held in the school without the specific consent of the administration. We have lock boxes in every school. They shouldn't be kept in a classroom, just asking for issues. 11, students, groups, or organizations who engage in fundraising events on behalf of Uintah County School District Number 1 must follow appropriate financial controls to safeguard funds, CKMBR for recommendations. And I think that's a common sense thing. We've experienced issues in the past. It just makes sense to protect yourself as an individual and as an organization. You want to do that. So that is the changes to IGDF.
Yep.
So I don't mean to throw like a wrench in the gears, but I found some wording that I want us just to think about if we want to kind of put more safeguards in here. One wording I found is, it would go underneath the numbered section, is all fundraising projects shall be instituted for definite, predetermined, and budgeted purposes, which are in harmony with the board philosophy and adopted policies. So it's like we know that certain fundraisers go to a certain purpose. So it just kind of, goes back to like, we need to know, okay, they're fundraising for this reason.
Identify the purpose of the fundraising.
So I like that idea. I don't know if anybody else likes that idea. So it's just another safeguard that we know where the money's going to go to. Like, I don't care where the money's going to personally, but.
But again, I don't think we need to micromanage it. Like, I have faith that Candace is, I think you should have a broad term, like, hey, we're gonna raise a bunch of money for uniforms or whatever. But like our football team, how many times do they buy Gatorades or something on a trip? I don't wanna know that we're buying 18 Gatorades when the kids all come home.
And I think what the charter does say, what are your fundraising events and what will you spend the money on?
Like, I don't think we need a penny, an exact penny of what your plan is, let us know, hey, our big fundraiser this year is going to the marching band uniforms.
No, and I don't.
I just don't want
I don't want that. I didn't expect that wording would come across that way, because I don't expect that at all.
Okay.
Because I don't want it
That's
that
not,
way.
when I read that, I'm thinking we want like exact number.
No.
Fundraising for hotels, fundraising for uniforms,
I think it has to be
fundraising for
conveyed to
mills.
the community, though. If they're putting in money for a fundraiser, this is what it's going to pay for.
But it is in the charter.
But, and if that word, these are just ideas, and if that wording does not fit well, or that's perfectly
I can definitely add it, and then we can look at it next month.
Look at it next time.
And then also I found, because I know that one of the complaints that we've got is that some of our businesses or donors feel very taxed by multiple fundraisers. And so this one policy I found actually limits the amount of fundraisers per year. And I don't know if that's something that we even want to. Like I said, I don't want to micromanage at all. But if there is a concern, the board has a concern about the number of separate fundraisers, there is wording.
Yeah, hopefully, that first part of this where you get approval, you're getting approval based on the amount of fundraisers. If you have 12 fundraisers, the principal needs to say, whoa, 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 that's too much. So part of that, I think, is in the management of what's too much. If you have 5 fundraisers that collect $500 each, it's different than 5 fundraisers that collect $2,500.
Yeah.
That has to be monitored by someone, and right now, we've put that at the principal's fees.
I'm not sure legally if we can do that either. John and I will have to visit. We have to be careful because we don't want to overstep our fiduciary.
Yes,
role
I
on
understand that
this.
too.
So John and I can talk about that, but it's a good suggestion. I'm just not sure we can do that.
It's a policy I found from another district, so it's just like, if we are really looking at this, if we wanted to add,
Yeah.
but if we don't, I'm perfectly fine with
We'll
that.
check on it.
So,
We'll talk about that
I'm done with that.
on second reading, too.
Okay.
Okay, next one.
So, next policy that we're going to be looking at is policy IGD, our co-curricular and interscholastic activities.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if you recall, we did talk about this one last month, and we did approve it at first reading. You did ask me to put some additional changes in there. Do you want me to review all of it, or just the changes we made?
Changes.
Okay. So, if you remember, this one deals with the difference between extracurricular, co-curricular, and just school trips. This one does set a limit of 350 miles. That was there in the past. It does spell out the difference between Wyoming high school activities and non-Wyoming high school activities. It does reference some of the other policies. I just added, for clarification, co-curricular and school endorsed activities are events not linked to Wyoming High School Activities Association, summer camps, workshops, and trainings.
Which means, what is an activity that is not sanctioned by the WHSAA?
Well, summer camp is probably the best way. If you take your football team to a summer camp, that would be this kind of, that's what this is talking about. Any kind of activity that's not part of Wyoming High School activities that we approve at the beginning of the year, which would be anything outside of their sanctioned events. So we've had drama trips, we've had classic trips that were not part of the Wyoming High School Activities Association.
And those,
we've had school trips that were not.
And then those trips are the responsibility of the individuals to participate
So we're not
on
saying
their own
they can't go on
financially.
them, we're just saying that it is their
different,
financial
yes.
responsibility, it is they're
So
doing it on
that's-
summertime.
If you recall the discussion, camps were the best one. Is when we send a student to football camp, the expectation is they pay their way. Funds aren't raised to take them to camp, even though they could be, that's in here too, but the expectation is the students pay. So this is what you guys asked me to add under 2. Travel requiring an overnight stay must be approved by the building principal and the superintendent or his designee. Travel outside of a 350-mile radius must be approved by the building principal, the superintendent, and the board of trustees. Events requiring travel greater than 350-mile radius with multiple overnight stays need to be planned outside of the academic calendar and/or school year and be approved by the board of trustees.
Has that 350-mile radius been in force?
It has.
Since 1989?
If you recall, we've had many trips by Horizon before COVID,
Yeah.
and they were school-sponsored trips. We kept them within the 350 miles. In terms of how we held that to other non-Wyoming high school activity events, no. If you go to Utah, it's a quick round trip. If you go to Gillette, you're pretty close to that 350.
Yeah, that's, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, we talked about the 350. Is that sufficient, or is it
Typically, these are for out of
insufficient?
state. If you travel in our state,
you're okay.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about activities in St. George, which is outside that
And I think
350.
if we got really tight on that, they just have to come and say, we're not 350, we're 375.
Oh, okay, all right.
400. The board's going to approve it anyway. This relates to multiple trips outside of our state, longer than 350 miles. In other places, it talks about that should be paid for by the individual, very clearly, not by fundraisers.
So, I have a question, and I don't want to get into the classic stuff right now, so just wait. But, so, for instance, what I know they're going to be talking about tonight, going further than this 350-mile radius, it's a specific time this group has to go, and there's other groups, because they're participating in something, which is during the school year. In this, are we saying that even as, if they get together as a group and their parents agree and they want to travel, they can take their personal time, or are we saying they won't be allowed to do that?
If they're on their own time in the summer, it doesn't have to be board
Well, I mean,
approved.
but this event's not in the summer, but they're going to now, and there's gonna be future ones like that, that it's a planned competition, whether it's cheerleading, dance, drama, whatever. Are we saying they absolutely cannot go?
That's what that says.
That's what it says.
Now, know what it says. It says they can't go. It says it has to be approved by the Board of Trustees.
They need to be planned outside of the academic calendar year. Some things can't be. This competition is not outside the calendar year. I think we should.
This competition is not, but other competitions are.
I think we should try it, but I don't know that we should put that in. I think we could put, we need to try to put them outside the calendar year, but I think there's gonna be times that we need to make exceptions. You know, it's not fair to not allow our classics or our drama team or our cheerleaders not to participate in a national competition because it's during the school year. I think we need to kind of case-by-case basis
That is the direction I've received by the board.
I disagree with that.
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's
trips that are not Wyoming High School Activity Association trips that are supposedly co-sponsored by the school district. We have a huge liability for those.
Yep.
They're outside of their competition range. And all the things we've talked about, why those get tricky. Sometimes there's inequities of who goes and how often they go. The expectation I heard from the board is those need to be outside of the school calendar. We have 175 days of school. Some would argue that's not enough. Some would argue it's too much. But the expectation for the board to encourage individuals to miss school, I don't think is wise.
Well, I don't think it's wise either, but I also want to make sure that we're being fair to some of these kids who are not just athletics.
And you're talking to the choir with me, I agree. And that's why we're doing this now, and I think we're good with the classics now, but in the future, this sets the mark. Policy has been foggy, which has allowed individuals and groups to go where the majority of the board didn't really want them to go. Last year, the board denied a trip to Disneyland with one of our clubs. Just said no. They were still able to go. It was just not school sponsored.
And that's what I'm saying. So like this is not going to make it so even unschool sponsored stuff can't be done.
We can't do that. If a parent wants to take their child
20
somewhere.
classic kids, all their parents say we're taking them, we're
The
going.
difference is we can encourage them. It's not EHS chess club that's going.
Right.
It's a
It's
group of
just
students.
Group
that are
of
going.
Okay, that's what I was asking now.
There are entanglements when you get involved in us approving a trip, then we are potentially liable. And if we're okay with that, we're okay with that. The idea that these trips are beneficial, there's no doubt. But how do we do it and be consistent? That's what I've been asked to do. Put these in policy so there is no black or gray or fuzzy.
Well, and that's all I was, I just don't want to set an absolute hard limit. Like, we can say we're not the ones sponsoring them, but if parents all take their kids out and they decide to get together, like the drama club did.
Yes.
Like, I don't think we should be
That's
responsible for them, but I do think the parents should be able to parent excuse and
And with
take it
that
if they choose to do
situation,
it.
then the students need to pay for their trip,
Absolutely.
not a school fundraising event. And that was okay with them at the time. And they actually had a great trip.
Yes, sorry.
John?
The board, as we said last month, these funds are fiduciary. Basically, we don't, as management, we don't control them and things like that. The area that you as board have control over is really two areas. One is transportation. So if it's an off, even in the summer, board policy says, hey, if it's a school-sponsored club or something like that, there's a little bit of entanglement in there in terms of, and control by the board to say, hey, can't use a district bus. And district staffing is the other. So the sponsor, in most cases, 99% of the time, is employed by the district. And the board has control over the sponsor. The board also has control over the bus driver. So it's not like saying, okay, hey, you can do it whenever you want, or whatever. There still is a board control in that, in those arenas.
That's why we're in this position tonight, and we have a few visitors, is we want to be able to say, go, have a great time, but here are some understandings for now and in the future to protect our students, parents, and the board. Clearly outlined, so after November, there are no, all these are approved, second reading, there are no questions about these trips. If you go back to this policy, it's important, we haven't read it, but you need to read what we support for Wyoming high school activities. We basically support everything, and we're 100% in on all that stuff, including all these clubs and groups that are Wyoming high school activity sponsored. The weird thing for the Classics this year is their competition is in January. Didn't have anything to do with that change, I can tell you. I think that's weird, but I loved it associated with state basketball. They just can't pull it off now. So now it's at the end of January. So they still have 2 months of their sports season, and their state competition has already happened. So it makes sense this year, we look at this national competition, and we get them there with the understandings that I'll address later. But I want, especially in this policy, the difference between Wyoming High School Activities Association and non-Wyoming High School Activities Association. We have no responsibility for those non-Wyoming high school activity events. We can encourage, because sometimes they're exceptional. You guys have seen the trips that are, I think Horizon has taken. Exceptional. The very first part of that, which we talked about and we got approved last month, is the cost of travel, lodging, and meals shall be the responsibility of the participating students. That's the difference between Wyoming high school activities and non-Wyoming high school activities. Kids can go, they need to pay the price. The difference. Now, also in this policy, found above, is if students can't afford it, sponsors need to work on ways to help them afford it. I'm not talking about school fundraising events, but ways to help those individuals raise some funds.
And typically the sponsors, do they go to the athletic director for some assistance and help in that regard? Or the principal?
If you recall the policy we looked at dealing with national competitions, that's what happened. But it has to be on a limited basis. If you remember, that one deals with national qualifying events that are Wyoming high school activities supported. And typically, one student can qualify for the national competition, so we send that student and the sponsor. We don't send the whole team. Even that got real expensive. So that policy, we limited it, was it 5 or is it 7? 5. 5 students, 1 sponsor. If the sponsor is a different gender, we send the same gender as another sponsor. So that clears that up, I hope. And that's the confusing part of this, is there's multiple policies that were developed for specific events. And in that policy, if you remember about national competition, it says you can save funds. Well, that's been taken out. So now, if it's a Wyoming high school event, we pay for it. If you qualify for nationals, we'll send you, and a sponsor. But only those who qualify for the national competition. Different. DECA, FBLA,
robotics, math camps,
FFA,
robotics.
They have qualified events. Speech and debate, they have qualified events.
So the changes to this policy is really trying to clean things up, because it was a situation that trips were coming before the board, and we found that, I felt that we were making the exception to our own policies time and time and time again. And if we're not following our own policies, then we need to fix something.
Yes.
You're rewriting the policies when you do that.
And the problem is, and you can see it, is there's 4 policies right now that deal with this, and now we're trying to align them all. And at the same time, we have a student group that wants to go somewhere that will be typically in violation of the policies we're approving, but I understand the ex post facto, we're okay. First reading is tonight on some of these, second reading is November. If you approve the classic trip, you're not violating your policies. Especially if we have understandings clearly identified.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, well, let's go ahead and
Keep
move
going.
on to our next
Sorry,
one,
it's taking so long.
which is policy KMB, and then we're going to do KMBR as well.
Okay, I'm going to go over KMB, but I'm not going to go over KMBR.
Okay.
Just because that's a regulation. All we need is if you guys see problems in that doesn't require board action. I put it on there for approval. What I did, and you can see it in relations with parent organizations here. Maybe you can't. I simplified the charter.
Right.
So the charter, the name, purpose of the organization, officer names and contact information, bylaws that include the financial plan that includes the following: fundraising plan including goals, objectives, fundraising events, and procedures to be followed by students and parents. See policy KMBR. Okay. Statement of potential revenue, anticipated expenses. I think, Cassie, that gets to yours. Is what do you want to raise? How much are your expenses going to be? And then statement of internal controls. See policy KMBR. That's the financial controls we talked about. I think John originally put policy KMBR together. Those financial controls are very sound and they're simple. The easiest way is to have two people involved in fundraising in terms of counting the money. Or, I like it now, is use electronic sources because there's no way to fudge Venmo. And then the rest is basically the same. All I did was simplify the charter. If you notice, I scratched through some of those because they're in the other parts of the policy. We'd like to know a meeting schedule, only so it's published so other parents who may want to attend can. And that will be, just added significantly to Director O'Neill, because we've been pretty hands-off on these events, but events recently have changed that we need to be just a little more hands-on, but maintain our fiduciary separation.
Okay.
Charter must be approved by the principal, activities director, and submitted to the superintendent or designee. I'm trying to find a designee. KMBR can be used as a template to develop and submit a charter. If you look at KMBR, and I can throw it up here, but I don't think you guys want to take the time to go through it. It's very clear what we're talking about. This whole idea of fundraising, formations of a booster club. That's what's hard, is you have activity boosters, but you also have PTAs and PTOs. And this policy is trying to cover all of that, and they're very different. But we took out everything that was confusing. There's no longer a constitution, bylaws. The bylaws are basically what we explained. Everyone's responsibilities are clearly identified. How you form a booster, you can see it's the same thing I had on the policy before. General operations are very clear about all the things we've talked about with fundraising. The expectation is that, the understanding is you follow these. The revenues, we even identified some of those: concession stands, program sales, special events, fundraisers, special donations, cash or equipment. What's appropriate as expenditures? Meals for away activity trips, hosting an awards banquet, apparel, student travel for summer camps. It's interesting, summer camps are not sponsored by Wyoming High School Activities Association, so we have to pay for our own buses because we're not reimbursed. And it's expensive. You charter a bus, it's expensive. So we've allowed fundraisers for those. The way we've set it up, Mr. O'Neill's not back there, is we pay for one, the organization pays for one. So it allows 2 summer camps. And we try to support as much as we can. As long as we can do that, we will. Trophies, awards, no, there's limited to $75 per person in kind. Again, that's NCAA, I believe. Photographs, consultant fees, which includes choreography, supplies, and equipment. That's what booster clubs should spend money on. And then it gets into, I believe, the financial controls are here somewhere. Fundraising, and then it's financial controls. All these are now aligned to the original policies, and there is a level of duplication, so it's clear. And then there's the recommended financial controls as I stated. please, again, read through these. This is approved at first reading. We can add to, take away, whatever you want. There is a failure to comply, which we've never had in the past. If you do not return your charter, we'll have to put a hold placed on the district's accounts until the charter is returned. We probably need to check to see if that is legal. What we mean by a hold is we just won't cut a check. Until the charter's in place. We're not taking control of the funds, just you have to get the charter before we cut a check.
Okay.
That's a lot, I know.
Does anybody have any questions with that?
I'm good.
Anything this way? Okay.
Madam Chair, since we're here, what I can do, let me see if I can find it. I just identified some understandings moving forward with these current policies that will be in place after November. For non-Wyoming high school activity events. These are basically taken from all those policies we just went through. Only students competing will be allowed to travel. An example would be your state competition roster. We've had issues in the past where we've had kids that competed in state, and then the roster to go to Disneyland was much different, not the classics. They weren't the state competitors, they were just kids in class. This takes care of that. Only those kids that have competed should participate in these competitions, okay? Two, the board and administration strongly encourage reducing the number of school days missed from 5 to 3. Would be best, or 4 would be better. The students will have to take parent-requested leave. This is going to be a duality, I see, is we can't get past the fact that with the classics, it's Evanston High School Classics. We can't get past the fact that the last 3 to 4 years they've raised funds under the name of Evanston High School Classics. So there's going to be some entanglements in terms of if the board chooses, which is my recommendation, to approve this, there are some entanglements still, and that's what these understandings are for. Parents want their kids to go, they just need to take parent-requested leave. It's not going to be school-requested leave because it's not Wyoming high school activity event.
And it doesn't count against their attendance.
It could.
But I think I've read in the Wyoming statute that it doesn't. I may be wrong, but I've read that this weekend.
If they miss more than 9 days, they're in, I'll say, jeopardy of losing credit. There's a buyback policy which they'd be eligible for. That's kind of coming to a little bit. The expectation, and the reason why I support them going is because these are very good students. Missing 5 days is tough, missing 4 days is better, as we talked about, so I appreciate that change. It's still 4 days, that's a lot. Will they be able to make it up? Yeah. My concern is timing. If we make it to state basketball, boys or girls, that's the day they get back. Are they going to turn around and want to go to state? Again, that's a parent's decision, but one of the things I have to think about. Okay. The students competing must meet all the district's eligibility requirements, including not exceeding the number of days absence in a semester. That's the 9 days. If they do, they just have to participate in the buyback. They put time in to buy their time back.
Yep.
And academically, I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. Hopefully. Travel to and from the airport will be chartered. No students driving themselves, or students driving students, or parents driving students other than their own student, as per policy. The board has never wavered on that. You go to the airport, you need to take a charter, which can be our own transportation. But since it's not Wyoming high school activities, it cannot be reimbursed. You'll have to pay for it. You can use fundraisers to pay for that cost, or you can push the cost to students like they do for the camps. And I think that's we have to get that. The expectation is we've had issues in the past. We're not going to jeopardize that.
No.
Let's see. Fundraising events will be limited in the future. Funds will be used to support the team, which means equipment, costumes, meals for state competitions, choreography, summer camps, and clinics. Booster clubs will follow their approved charter. So that's kind of dual role with the district as we need to make sure those charters are approved. Funds raised will be spent in the year acquired, maintaining a minimum annual balance as per the other policies we put in there. Trips to non-Wyoming high school events will be taken in the summer or on non-school days and paid for by the student participants. So the expectation moving forward is that's when these trips will happen, is on non-school days or in the summer. I think part of the reason why we have this conflict now is because it wasn't made clear that every 4 years you can't go on a trip. That was never in policy. It's clear now, hopefully, that trips to non-Wyoming high school activities need to be taken outside of the school calendar or on non-school days. I just added this one because I think one of the board members asked me about it. Chaperones will need to be cleared as volunteers as per district policy. It's really easy. You just submit your name, we do a DCI background check.
Who does that background check?
Our district office. Department of Criminal Investigation. We are the ones. And I think this trip is in March, so there's plenty of time to get that done for all of us.
The fingerprinting and background checks is all inclusive in that.
We do the fingerprinting necessary.
Local cops.
Those would be my understandings from what we put into policy. And if these are exceptions after November, again, it's the ex post facto. This trip will be approved. My recommendation is approval with these understandings. That's what's going to come from me. And with that, that's all the policy stuff. I could probably
Stomach.
stand.
It's a lot of policy.
So just one last question for me on this is, how is this going to be communicated to all of the booster clubs, et cetera? You know what I mean, the sponsors and the president of the booster clubs. I mean, if this is all becomes a done deal, I mean,
Yes.
here's the policy.
We had a packet in the past, so a packet would be provided. The packet is just, it had policies in it, and then a template for the charter. We'll do the same. This will be read into the minutes as board policy in the future, moving forward, so.
Okay.
So is there anything that, I mean, there's nothing holding sponsors to this, there's nothing that they got to sign and they agree upon, we fully understand our charter to make sure that everybody is clear on this? Is there anything that we need to require signatures upon? I don't know, I'm just asking that to make sure that everybody is
Yeah, so
aware.
there's no, I didn't know.
What was pointed out is we control our sponsors. And if they don't follow policy, there can be consequences. And typically, we work with them and they will.
Okay.
I don't know how else to do it except to update our policy manuals, that they're there, make sure our director of activities and athletics makes clear with the booster clubs. We don't want a lot of entanglement, as you guys have brought up, but it's obvious from recent events, we need to have some.
Yep.
And that's why we've had to update these policies.
I do have another question. So you said something about like the camps that they do in the summers, basketball, football, wrestling, whatever. Those are not Wyoming high school sponsored events, but we pay for one for each group or what? So
We
in
pay
this,
for one trip, the travel.
the travel,
We try to help them with the travel. We don't pay for
on
anything.
all the groups or just, just,
One for everyone.
okay, that's what I,
We can do that.
so
as
we're
long
not
as we can do
eliminating
that.
ourselves from that either, are we?
No, no.
With this policy saying we won't cover
The only
kids'
thing that will
kids'
eliminate
issues?
us from doing that is if we get into our budget cycle and there's no money available.
And then it'll just fall back on
Yeah.
parents and students
provide
to
their
cover
own.
it.
But we've been pretty lucky.
Any other questions to wrap up all of our policy discussion?
I'm good.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So our next item for discussion is our trip request from the EHS Classics.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I just introduced Candace Spivey, our classic sponsor.
Come on up.
I pay him to do that. Just kidding, I don't. Good evening. I'll try to make this as least painful for you as possible, but Madam Chair, members of the board, I would like to formally introduce myself to you. My name is Candace Spivey, and I am the new head coach of the Evanston High School Classics. I would like to thank you not only for the opportunity to be here tonight to present to you on behalf of my team, but also for the opportunity given to me to be able to be a coach of these amazing group of girls. The last 6 months have been a complete whirlwind of chaos, but have been filled with so much love and appreciation for these girls and their resiliency and their incredible parents and families. In my 10 years of coaching drill team, I have never felt so much love and support from a community as I do here in the town of Evanston. I would like to publicly thank my girls, their parents, UNT County School District 1, and our community for the love, support, and encouragement that I have received thus far. As stated previously, I'm here, and 2 was this trip that the Classics are supposedly able to take once every 4 years. Not being from Evanston, I was eager to learn about all of it, soaked up every word that was spoken to me and explained by the girls and their parents. Many of these girls have been on the team for 4 years, and their parents, not to age them, have also been Classics as well, and have been able to take these trips to nationals or other various locations. And so I was lucky enough to hear it from all sources. This year, the 2022-2023 school year, was the long anticipated trip that was supposedly supposed to happen. This was not a new idea or an agenda that anybody was asking me to push. Funds had already been fundraised for this purpose over the course of the last 3 years, which I now know is not policy. And girls were eager to learn where this trip would take them and anxiously awaited my decision to where we would be going. I was anxious to get started on carrying out this tradition, and I took the words spoken to me and instantly started thinking of what the most beneficial trip would be for these girls, what would be meaningful, what would be insightful, what would help them to explore and expand their love for dance. I thought about the many trips I took in high school as a drill team member and how much each one of those trips meant to me, but I also thought about the trips I've taken as a head coach with my drill teams and which ones were the most beneficial to those girls. One trip and one experience replayed in my head over and over again, and that was a dance trip to nationals. I wanted these girls in this room tonight to experience everything that a national competition has to offer them. I wanted them to work hard and take those long hours it would take to get there and feel the gratification of doing something so big on a stage that's not offered in high school athletics. So I hit the ground running. I did everything I could to pull favors to get us into this prestigious competition in Florida, and after a lot of emails and phone calls, we were in. Evanston High Schools, we as Classics, we were going to nationals, and I was so excited. It wasn't until I approached our athletic director about this possibility that I became aware of the irony that surrounds these trips that are supposed to happen once every 4 years. It was explained to me that this had been kiboshed and had been said that this is no longer going to happen many years ago, and that this trip simply wasn't going to happen. As a coach, I was devastated. I know how much the girls wanted to do this trip. I know how hard they've worked on these fundraisers. And essentially, in my mind, it was for nothing. I will tell you, I truly believe these girls, these parents, this booster club had no idea of these policies that were in place or of the problems that we were causing by fundraising funds the way we did. I think our financial records will speak to that. They've been there. They've been constant if you look at them, and there's not been any repercussions to this point. The Classics in no way, shape, or form plan this trip with ill intent or purpose to go against any of your board rules. In addition, the rules and board policies in place we've seen have had loopholes, and other teams have been able to take trips such as this, and they've been able to navigate and jump through these hoops. That being said, I take full responsibility as a coach for not for one, getting these girls so excited about a dance nationals trip when I neglected to fully understand board rules and policies in this district, and research that I should have done beforehand that I simply didn't do as a new head coach. Advice that I should have been given but I didn't ask for. I'm not one to be above the law. I'm not one to ask for any kinds of exceptions or favors. But I'm also somebody that fights for something that they truly believe in and for the people that they love. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, these girls have every bit of my heart. And that's why I'm here tonight in front of you. I want to do things the right way. I want to make sure that we're not feeling like we're above the law and that we have your permission to go forward with this. Our original contract, if you looked at it, was dated back at the end of June. We've held off this long to do this the right way. So the details, I'm so sorry, in my initial request with the trip itinerary has changed. Is it appropriate to hand these out?
Sure.
Okay, so I will give you, this is the updated itinerary for the trip. And I just want you to first notice kind of the dates that are set forward there. The actual competition itself takes place on March 3rd through 5th. I was able to work with the travel agent that organizes these competitions. The initial day that we would leave would be Thursday, March 2nd. You'll see that it says, thank you, 45 persons there. That's to account for any chaperones, parents, anybody that wants to go. The more people, as far as like family that get to go, the cheaper it brings down the overall price. So that's why that's slated for that. But you'll notice when you go in to the dates, I hope as you look at this, you'll see we're not going to sit on a beach. We're not going to go to Disney World for 3 days and Universal Studios for a day and take one dance class and call it a dance national trip. These girls have 3 full days of competition. One of the days, the 3rd, I believe that is a theme park day, but Saturday, March 4th and Sunday, March 5th are full performance days. Monday, March 6th, they slated for a day for the girls to go enjoy the parks, and then Tuesday, March 7th is the day that we would travel home. Again, this is not a vacation we're wanting to take to go play. This is something that the girls are working towards to go represent our community and our high school and really be allowed to showcase their talents. I don't know if you guys realize how talented these girls are. So in total, the girls would be missing 4 days of school. All of their girls and parents know that the girls have to take a parented requested leave for these days and that the total absences in the semester must not exceed that 9-day threshold. They're very aware of that. It is my hope that I would be able to take all 20 girls listed on my team. I know this goes against the first rule that we're implementing that are state performers, and if you'll allow me a minute to expand on that, every girl on this team serves a purpose. Every single girl on this team, although they may not be in a state routine, our intention is to take, I don't know if you saw our homecoming routine, but that be one of the routines that we also showcase at nationals that highlights each one of our girls and their strengths. What we have to keep in mind is when you go to a national competition, you have to account for injury or illness that could take place. We have to have alternates that we can work into a spot. If we take just a state roster, God forbid there's any accidents, I have nobody to work into those spots. That also being said, I have a girl on my team who is a manager. She's been on this team for the last 2 years. She has fundraised. She's been to every fundraiser, every practice, every performance. She's my right arm when it comes to competitions. I can't be backstage with girls and I can't be at a sound table like it's required. I am one coach. They allow me to have somebody that goes with me to be able to have at the sound table or be backstage with the girls if there's any problems that arise. My hope is all 20 girls to go, all 20 of them have fundraised, all 20 of them have worked their butts off to be to this point. Like I said, every girl serves a purpose on this team, whether it be dancing in front, and center of a formation, as an alternate, or as my assistant who needs to be at the music booth. We are a team and we work as a team, and that's something that I can say wholeheartedly. In addition, as is always the case with any athletic team, the girls know and understand eligibility requirements that are expected of them. I think it's very important to know that of these 20 girls sitting in this room tonight, they're not only dancers. We have a member of the golf team, marching band, track and field, choir, National Honor Society, FFA, speech and debate, DECA, student council, FCCLA, strings, soccer team, and members of the theater team represented as well. All of which is done while many of them still maintain working jobs and keeping their grades up. Furthermore, it's important and very impressive, if I might add, these 20 girls that you are seeing tonight have a cumulative high school GPA of 3.77. 14 of them are at a 3.88 or higher, and 6 of them maintain a perfect 4.0 GPA. Yes. All of being achieved while working, attending dance practices. They practice Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 7. We're lucky enough to have some people there to witness their work, and also participating in their extracurricular activities. If there are a group of students that are committed to their academics, you're looking at them right now. These girls are hard workers and dedicated to their success as a team and individually, both on and off the floor. Trip costs, I know, are a main issue. Our issue right now is the way that funds are being asked to be spent. Again, we know going forward that that's not the way to do it. Our trip costs will not exceed $1,800 per girl. All of our airfare, travel in Florida, insurance costs, everything is included in this total. Our Booster Club president, she's going to talk briefly to you a little bit on our funds and our account. The funds are in the account. They've been there for some time. And again, I want you to know that we are fully aware of how we move forward, that our Booster Club will not be ran and funds will not be collected the way they have in the past. Again, this is something that's been done for years and hasn't been corrected, so I do apologize as well. All of that aside, I do want to make it perfectly clear that the intentions of our fundraisers have always been very clear, and in no way, shape, or form were to take advantage of the community in any way, especially for a free trip, as some would like to call it. All of our efforts have been honest, fair, and been earned by each one of the girls, their parents, and even myself. If you've ever attended one of our golf tournaments, bought ice melt, worked alongside us at the Cowboy Days, which was a trip, or even been involved in any of our other fundraisers, that would be very evident to you. These girls are hard workers and they put their whole heart out on the line. We have had nothing but support from so many people in our community who have reached out to us to see how they can help and want nothing more than to see these girls succeed and expand on their talents. In closing, because I always have to tie it together, when I started coaching this team, I knew I needed something completely different. I knew I wanted to build this team up, and more important, I wanted this team to recognize their full potential. I don't think they know how great they are. A very close friend of mine, you can call her a boss, I like to call her a colleague, but somebody I greatly admire recommended a book by author John Gordon. I gravitated towards one of his books called The Energy Bus. I would highly recommend you read it if you haven't already. And I knew quickly that this is the route I was going to take with my team. We go through this book daily. We do team building activities every week that touch on this book. And to just kind of give you a roundabout way, author John Gordon introduces us to a bus driver. Her name is Joy. She's committed to unleashing the positive energy in every single one of her passengers, regardless of how they get on their bus, sad, mad, frustrated. To do so, she shares 10 rules with everybody on the bus. The first few are about regaining control over your life if you feel like you've lost it, which as high school students, they often do. But the others focus on energy since they're only proper to fuel for a good journey. Joy, the bus driver, believes she should focus on the upside of everything. And the 3 main ideas to take away are: 1, take control of your life with positive energy and outlook; 2, that humans sense enthusiasm from a distance, and that's what gets them involved. And 3, to love people. Make time to listen, recognize them as individuals, and appreciate their accomplishments. From this book, we know that we can't control the outcome of this situation, but we will never stop trying to solve problems, learn new things, get better, and try to come out on top. With that being said, I'm going to leave you with one last quote. Did you know you can take the bus anywhere you want to go? Say 3 times with me. Yes, yes, yes. You can take it to the movies, you can take it to the beach or the North Pole. Just say where you want to go and believe that it will be so. Because every journey and ride begins with a desire to go somewhere and do something. And if you have a desire, then you also have the power to make it happen. Madam Chair, members of the board, these are my classics, and we are Joy, and we're inviting you to get on our bus to state nationals.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, Mrs. Spivey, yes.
Yes.
Can all the girls stand up?
Yes, I would love that. I actually wanted them right behind me because they give me such comfort. They're incredible. Truly are. I think there's a few of them that would like to speak to you, and then we also have a few parents that would like to say a few words.
I have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Okay. You mentioned in here, kind of iffy, how many chaperones will you have? Do you know yet?
Well, it's not finalized yet, but I've got to get that number really darn quick because our deposit is past due. Right now I have it slated for 45 as far as flights are concerned. We have 45 flights booked out. However, as far as rooms booked out, there's for 56.
Yeah, okay. And then the competitions, do they mirror what you do at the state level?
They do. So you can take as many routines as you want to a Dance Nationals competition. It doesn't have to be a state qualified routine. There are some states where they don't host a state competition. In Utah, I'll give you an example. I worked with a 6A drill team. They had, in a 6A drill team, the team that took first place at state went to nationals and competed against the 6th place team at state. The 6th place team ended up coming back and beating the 1st place team. What happens at a Dance Nationals competition that's so great, you take the politics out of it completely. When you go to a Dance Nationals competition, you're getting judges from around the world that know nothing about what your name is, what your school is, where you came from, which is something we don't get at state competition. So it's a more level playing field.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah.
So you have a jazz competition and a hip-hop both, or what?
Yes. Yes, we will.
Okay. The only other thing I would ask is take lots of pictures.
Right, yeah, of course.
The board does like to have you return and report.
Yes, always. We got lots of those.
I have some questions, if I could, please.
Yes.
And my questions is not indicative of how I feel about this at all. I just want to make that clear. Of the 20, how many are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors?
All right, quiz time. I have 2 freshmen. I have 5 seniors. Help me out. Juniors, I have a lot. 6, 7. 6. And then 7 sophomores.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple more. So you haven't met any of the financial responsibilities for down payments?
We haven't.
Have you talked to somebody to say, hey, we're going to give you another week or 2 or something like that? Okay.
We told them that tonight would be the final stamp of approval, hopefully.
Oh, okay. The question I have is medical related, because we've been talking about the new policy with regard to medications at the school.
Mm-hmm.
I know they'll have an insurance and all this other stuff. Will there be someone designated, approved that can provide, if a parent's not there, an aspirin?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's on the up and up, you know what I mean?
Yep, we have a school nurse that will be coming along with us.
Oh.
My husband...
Is that one of the 2 that did the presentation last month?
No, I went to the other one.
Okay, all right, okay, so that answered that, because that, to me, that was an important question. And I'm not going to ask any more questions.
So we do want to value everybody's voice in this, but if we can kind of limit how many people come up during this time, maybe a couple, 3. I think we've got the gist of what we need to hear, but I do want to welcome.
I have another question on before they.
Yes, please.
How many are state basketball potentials? Like, are any of you gonna end up there?
No.
So we don't have to worry about you missing more school than needed? No. No one's gonna like cut school just to go watch state basketball? And then.
You don't need to answer now. Don't go to state. I'd like to see some of you there, but don't miss 2 more days of school.
Oh, so they would go to state as drill team?
I would hope so.
Oh, see, I didn't understand that. I thought they were like going as basketball players too, so that's why I was confused.
They will go as, well, I'd say cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Like the rest.
how about are just the kids being funded out of the booster money?
Yes.
Chaperones are all covering their own costs?
Yes. Yep.
So.
Just the girls.
Okay.
And you and the nurse.
Yeah, so we actually, if we have 20 competitors, for every 20 people we go, we get a free trip. So that would cover myself, and then if we had the 45 that went, for as far as parents, then the nurse would be covered as well.
Oh, okay, all right.
So you're looking at expenditure of upwards of $36,000 on this?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other
You're welcome.
questions?
No, I'm good.
specifically?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Kylie. I'm a senior this year on the dance team. Kylie Smith. I do want to start with a letter that we received from Michael Searle. He is a really big part of our team. I feel like he's always opening the door for us at our practices, and he always watches our dances and helps give constructive criticism and just helps us in general. So I asked him last Wednesday if he could come to this meeting and speak for us. Unfortunately, he's not here, but he wrote a letter to us, and it says, "Dear Classics, first I want to say how proud of you I am. The work that you have all put in this year is simply amazing. To give a little background, my mother was a Classic. She was on the drill team. In high school, I dated a Classic dancer, so I was a part of it for 4 more years. I even made the trip to Orlando to watch how hard the girls had work. The reason I am writing this letter is because I want you to know that every day I see how hard all of you work. Not only is Candace getting us ready for each dance at halftime and our state competition, but life. Whether or not you pursue dance as a major or a hobby or a job, the memories and friendships will stick with you forever. As I grew up around this, the more I realized that is more than just dance. As an athlete, I was amazed and blown away at how hard dancers work, physically and mentally. It is a challenge. The moves, the routines are just amazing, and to have your coach be able to show you is even more special. You have all worked so hard and will continue to do so, which comes to the main point of the letter. I am so thankful and flattered that you asked me to be here for your board meeting today. Unfortunately, I will be unable to make it as the boys had their last game in Star Valley. You are all amazing. Don't forget for 1 second ever believe that you are not. I will be rooting for you from afar. Again, I am so proud of you. You deserve the world, and you have a coach that will show you how to get that." And then I wrote a pretty lengthy speech, but I'll make it short. So I've been dancing for 10 years, 4 of which have been on the Classics. I wake up at 4:30 every day, and I'm to practice by 5:30. The hours that I've put into this team are unmatched to, honestly, any other sports team. From fundraising, practices before school, after school, state competition, 2-a-days. We've just put in countless amounts of hours. Since dance is an all-year sport, we are constantly performing, practicing. Unlike most sports, we support our football players, our wrestlers, and the basketball players by performing at halftime, EAI, and even during home duels. We miss 1 day of school for state, which doesn't compare to how the other sports, how much school they're missing by getting excused on a Friday or random days throughout the week. All of us are asking for just 4 more days. That's 5 days out of the whole year that we miss. I know that my coach gathered all the cumulative GPAs, which I think is to know that my teammates work so hard in the classroom. I think we should also be given an opportunity to work and show what we can in the dance world as well. We're not going on this trip to sit and relax at a pool. The days of competition will be long and exhausting. From all my years of dancing, I have really never been given an opportunity like this. The biggest competition I have ever had is state. And not many of you know, but getting into a college dance team or furthering your dance career after high school is very difficult. Even after college, it can be very difficult to continue. Statistics show that only 10% of those that dance in college go into professional dancing. I think this opportunity will help not just me, but the other girls on the team as well, develop my future and the career path. Ever since I've been told that our trip might not be approved, I've heard many rumors and reasons as to why. One rumor that I have kind of heard is that we haven't won a state title. Last year was a very emotional year for all of us. We were .17 away from tying to first and .18 away from taking that state trophy home. This is the highest that I have ever placed on this team, and it's a bunch of hard work and hours you put in to perform a 3-minute dance and get an opinion back from judges. Not random judges, but hometown judges. This just gives Kelly Walsh a huge advantage. If any of you know or had watched at our state competition last year, we all know that that was a well-deserved we deserved first place. This trip gives us an opportunity to be judged by people who have no clue where we are from or our background. My mom told me that when she was a classic, they went to nationals and they placed third, and they placed third at state. And I think that just comes to show that no matter the level that you're being judged at, I think it still comes back to the hometown advantage and the judges. Like, you're still, to get the level difference between national and state is very different. I think that opinions from different judges can show completely different outcomes, and when you take the hometown advantage and leave the dancing to the dancers, it shows their true potential. I don't want this opportunity to say, I have been to nationals. I want to be able to develop deeper level bonds with each girl on my team, especially my coach, and develop a better understanding of the career that I want to go into. And I hope what I have said and what my teammates and possibly parents will say help lead the decision to approving this trip. I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll entertain one more, okay?
Yep.
You can become together.
Yeah, make it quick.
Hi, I'm Camry Frogner. I'm a senior classic, and I'm also the captain on this drill team this year.
I'm Allie Sanchez. I'm a junior, and I'm co-captain on the dance team this year.
So this is my 4th year on this team. That is 4 years of waking up before 5 and being at practice at 5:30, Monday through Friday. That is 4 years of working my absolute hardest to become a better dancer. That is 4 years of showing support for my school and community. That is also 4 years of fundraising I have done just to go on this trip. I have been very upfront about what the fundraising money goes towards to the people who choose to support me and participate in our fundraising. All 4 years on this team, I have told them that the money will go towards this classic trip. It is not a surprise to our community that our fundraising goes towards this trip. That is why we have raised so much money. The community wants to support us, they are proud of us, and they want to see us succeed and excel. That is why it's also not just the community that supports us. I have sold to many people out of town who want to see me excel in dance. People buy from us because they support us. We have the money covered, and it is no expense to anyone else, so that should not be an issue. This trip is not a chance for us to just go on vacation. Yes, we will have fun and be able to go to Disney World, but we will be competing. This will be stressful, and we will push ourselves to our limits so that we can succeed. We will be able to get rid of all the biases that happen at our state competition, and we will actually be able to compete and get scored based based off of our skill level, not our school name. We have the skills to succeed and do great at nationals. We will put in the time and effort to make sure that we make our school and community proud. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I have worked so extremely hard to make happen the past 4 years. I don't want it taken away at the last second after I have put all of this hard work and effort into this team and fundraising. It is not fair to us as students, it's not fair to our parents who have worked so hard to help us get here, and it's not fair to the community who has been told that this is where their donations will be going. Everyone on this team has fundraisers, so everyone deserves to go, performing or not.
Okay, I'll say what I have to say really fast. So when I was in 8th grade, I danced in a local dance studio with some of the current classics. I've danced with them in the past, and as these girls got into high school and I was in 8th grade, I remember talking to them and they were telling me how they got to go on their trip, the one that they got to go on every 4 years. And I remember they got back and I got to see how their bond grew, and not only that, but I also saw how they gained skills. If you approve our trip, we're not only going to strengthen our bonds as a team, but we are going to gain experiences and new skills getting to perform at that national level. Along with what the past girls have said, the judges at state are very biased towards the hometown team. And the only other time that this chance would be able to happen is if we go onto a college dance team, which college dance teams are very hard to get onto, and it's a very lengthy process. Along with dancing has a big toll on our bodies, so I don't think not everyone is going to want to dance in college. So I do believe that this is probably one of the last chances or opportunities that will be presented to a lot of these girls on the team. So I think that we should get to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I am going to close the discussion on this matter right now. I do, even though we didn't hear from each of you individually up here, I want you to know that your presence has been heard. And so I do think that we have the information that we need to make our decision later on in our meeting. Okay? So let's go ahead and move on to our other discussion items. The next item for our discussion is our board resolution, our compulsory attendance.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this has kind of been my focus for a long time. What this deals with is compulsory attendance. The idea of a 7-year-old is required to come to school, of course, but if they turn 7 in their first grade year, there is no requirement that they attend first grade. So there is no ability of our district to work with those parents to get the kids to come. So what this does is simply, I think, probably explained best in the last paragraph. This addition to the compulsory attendance statute will allow local school boards the legal authority to provide early intervention in a timely fashion for a poor attendance pattern developing during the first grade year. Early intervention is the key to success for a student struggling with poor attendance. Penalty for failure to comply would not exceed those found in Wyoming Statute 21-4106. If you recall in the past, one of the things we've tried to work on is the penalty itself, because there really is no penalty. But basically what this does is require first grade. First grade is compulsory. That's what we're trying to get to. I changed the wording a little bit, because what happens when we get to Wyoming school boards is those that are opposed to compulsory attendance as a 16 to 17 and 18-year-old throw this out before it even gets there. So we're just focusing on first grade. We think that needs to be compulsory. Maybe I just need to say that, but that's what this does. I had to submit this to Wyoming school boards yesterday. That was the due date. If the board does not want to submit this resolution from Uinta County School District, it'll just be removed.
No, this is something that we've been trying for a very, very long time. So
I think most people agree on the younger age. It's the older age that it's a good idea to do this one.
Does anybody have any questions
No.
about this? No? Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our easement adjustments.
Is Joel still there?
He is, I think. I can't see him. Unfortunately, he gets to watch me.
Hey, Joel.
He's still there.
All right.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. As our document kind of gets started here, I've been working with the City of Evanston on 2 easements. One is what's called a quick claim deed, which basically is allowing the City of Evanston a 20 by 20 area just past the youth center for their stormwater drain. The way things were originally set up, it kind of dumps into that area and then goes from there. And so as in talking with the city, I said, hey, well, let's just make sure that we have a deed on that. So this kind of shows you if you were to actually, let's look at the youth center there. So this is the EMS area. This is where the youth center is. This is that 20 by 20 area right here, basically allowing them for stormwater that would come off of, especially this new building that they put, to be able to come into here and go there. So if there's any issues, the city would be able to have the right to come in and do what they need to in that area. So that's what the first one is.
Do they take ownership of that property?
They would.
For $10?
For $10.
Does that mean they pay the taxes on it and all that stuff?
Yeah, they will take care of it all.
Now, my understanding is that this was under the Homestead Act, is that right?
I'm not sure.
Because, yeah, that's, I read it, it stated it was under the Homestead Act. My understanding of the Homestead Act means about houses, homes, not property. So I have a concern about that, but.
Why?
Why? Because if it's so states that it's under the Homestead Act, and the statute states that it means houses and homes, then it means that they're asking for this property for the purpose of which they want to acquire it under an act that doesn't have anything to do with it.
That's not what it means.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no, that's not what it means. It's a complicated legal thing, but it doesn't have that effect at all.
Okay.
It's,
For the purpose
every
of
property that gets
sold
is subject to the Homestead Act. Or transferred, is subject to the Homestead Act. It doesn't mean that you have to use it for homes. It's an act that has a broad application.
Okay.
Any other questions about this?
I don't.
Okay. The second one is an easement for water and sewer line. As you may recall, this is that property that we actually have put a lot of dirt on as of late. So we've got Evanston High School sitting here. This is our practice field. Up here, Evanston High School here, the practice field here. And basically what they're asking for is an easement. So in the future, if they needed to come in and put a sewer or a water line, they would have an easement to be able to do that. Now, based on what we have looked at as far as any projects moving forward, this would continue to probably at some time become a road, a paved road, and so it would make sense to do that. If we find that we need to change that and projects develop where we might move that a little bit further, I asked Dean, I said, can we move that easement? And he said, yeah, we could actually adjust that easement for that. So any questions on that easement there? Mr. Peterson.
So I understand. It's the expansion of that field that makes me a little bit nervous on granting them easements. The easement gives them the authority to go through and tear up anything that we have in there. If we decide to put a building on there, it's not going to happen, right? So if there's dirt, if we put a softball field or a baseball field, or we do anything up there, or a football field, anything, they have the right to go across that and tear that up. The other issue is okay, we're talking, well, if we need to move the easement in the future, that's going to be okay. If we move it back the other direction away from it, then we encroach upon the easements of our pipeline right-of-ways. So that becomes another issue. So just throwing that out there,
Well, if
you
it's
know.
not in writing, then there's no moving the easement later on.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to go through the same process, basically,
Yeah,
being able to.
But if they have the
If
easement.
there's no agreement on paper, then it's just them saying, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, so.
That doesn't really mean much.
So I guess as a board, right now, and as a district, we don't have any plans developed for any projects at this point.
Where are we going to
If
plan on
you
putting
would
the
like-
domes?
The domes are actually going to be down in what was the old tennis court area. So that would actually be down, it's kind of hard to see. But right behind the scoreboard itself before you get up to the practice field. So
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Up City View, we were going to put a subdivision up by the water tower. But in the infinite wisdom of people in the future, they decide to eliminate that road that was going up there, cut it in half, and was only half of a road that went up there, which restricted us from being able to develop that property up that direction. So as you're saying, as you move forward, it's just on paper. Like, with...
Yeah, if that's what the easement is, that's what the easement is. If they agree to change it later on, then that needs to be written in there.
And then the other thing is you're going to be subject to the existing easements that are the current pipelines.
which was all part of what we knew when we acquired that property from the city.
I know we
to
acquired
begin
the
with.
property,
Yeah.
but granting that
Yeah.
easement, then we're going to say we're going to move
Yeah.
that easement, and they're going to come back and say, well, we can't because we have
Yeah.
pipelines that's going to infringe on it.
Are they wanting to do something right now with it? Or are they just?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what they need it for right now.
So why don't we just approve
Just-
it when the
Just
time comes? that they
future-proofing some things for, they've
Future
talked, yep, future development. They've talked about bringing the water line from the top of the Twin Ridge area all the way over to that point. So,
Looping it so they can develop Burnt Hill.
yeah.
So Jaron, there's no rush on this, we could actually have them put into writing that we need to move these, but we can't.
I could visit with them.
Say that would be the recommendation. We've always tried to be a good partner with the city, and so, but at the same time, if you see that pile of dirt up there, we could put a football field or two, baseball field, softball field, tennis court. There's a lot of possibility up there.
Our growth is that direction.
Yes, it is. That's the only.
It is.
Yeah, that's the only way we go.
I mean, I want to cooperate, but I just don't understand if they don't have anything set right now, like, why do we have to do it right now?
I think the property at Evanston Middle School, they do have some things in mind.
Well, for this one specifically.
Do we approve them together?
They're separate. They're two separate documents. It was something that I was like, hey, because of our last, I'll call it misunderstanding on property, I just wanted everything in writing to begin with. And so it was one, I said, hey, do we ever need to worry about an easement? Because it seems like when we do things, that always becomes an issue. And so I probably was the one who instigated this more than the city did, and just being able to say, what do we need to make sure that we have in writing so that we kind of future-proof this area for not only ourselves, but for the city. And so that's what kind of started that, as we were talking about some other easements and stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah, I'm envisioning a trade or a tech school expansion right there, so.
It would have to be
Future development.
And with that, as we all know, we've got to be very careful because of where those high-pressure gas lines, what we can and can't do. And so, to your point, if we do extend or bring a field out that way, it would be something we'd have to definitely take into consideration.
I look at how that street comes up. Not that I want to give away our property, but I look, if in the future, if you're going to make that road, why don't you make it straight up? So the easement potentially could be this way, because you can move the football field as much as we want the other direction easily. So maybe we need to look at this and just say, hey, in this range, you're welcome to put an easement right now.
I don't think we move forward with the easement. That's my opinion. I think as soon as there's a request by the city, or if there's going to be future development up there, then we address it at that point. But to give them an easement right now, just to give them an easement,
Yeah.
does not make sense to me.
Well, and that gives us time to still decide what it is we want to do with that property.
Yeah.
Because
Good to me.
really, we can't build anything over the top, but we can do grass. We can do
We
a
can do
field
grass,
of
yeah.
some sort. So,
There are some things that, yeah, as we get further and further that way, it does make building
I
very
agree with
difficult.
Dave. I don't
No, I
like
agree,
giving
but,
that
I mean, you still got place
Yeah,
up
got a
this
lot of ways.
direction, and
until we have an idea.
So,
just to move forward with that right now,
Jared, will you throw up the easement for EMS one more time? Just, does that infringe on the possibility of putting a dome there? A bubble, not a dome?
it does not, I should say, it does not. So as we look at this, basically what they have showed us in blue is what we have been given back.
Okay, I thought blue is what we're giving them. All we're giving them is the burnt orange.
It's the burnt orange is what they are taking for an easement right there. But
400 square feet.
That's where we want to put one of the bubbles.
Yeah.
what this does is shores up what we have now gained back in our property. We put in our new fence and stuff like that. They just need that little 20 by 20 section.
Have you seen that fence? It's a beauty. 8 foot tall, is it 8 foot? It's quite a fence.
Yes. It has created a nice separation.
that
so-
one is,
Fine with
yeah, that was, so, I mean, it's got a purpose, it's going right now, it's, so.
And just so you know, conversation's been had. I was hoping they would have had all their paperwork for us, but the Parks and Rec and the City of Evanston has approached us because the current Outlaws Field sits on our property and they want to do some enhancements to that. Felt that they needed to actually use one of the fields that's part of the city complex there, not knowing what could possibly happen with that current field right now sitting on Evanston High School's property. So they have asked for, and working on their property easement to expand that out, which will be close to 54 feet from the center field. And so that will
infringe upon that blue.
Entrench, well, won't be the blue.
The parking.
It'll be the parking.
It'd be more on the parking lot.
For
But
curling.
in the upper end of that triangle, right?
No,
No.
Okay,
it's right field, so it,
okay. It's right field, all right.
So if you look
So it's over by the
It's
maintenance.
more
right
Yep.
field.
right over
Okay.
where my finger is that way, so.
No.
And we had a conversation, it's hard to predict the future. Both Mr. O'Neill and I think softball's probably coming. We have a field on our property, that should be our high school softball field. So this would be, I think,
American
a
Legion.
good neighbor. Let's
Yep.
give them the land they need to have a full-size right field moving forward. We don't have that document right now, right?
We don't have that document, I'm just kind of giving you heads up, that'll be probably the next document to come that we talk about, and that's what that's in regard to, so. Appreciate it. Any other questions on these? All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we're down to public comments. So right now, I'll open the floor for public comments. I will ask that if you guys can, if it's a situation where we've already addressed a situation tonight, that we don't duplicate it, but it is open if anybody wants to come up.
Open mic.
Okay, okay. With no public comments noted, we'll go ahead and move on to our action items. First item for action is our trip request from the EHS Classics. Is there a motion regarding the EHS Classics trip request as been presented tonight?
Okay, so are we approving this, that they're taking, it's just going to be parent excused? We're not,
So, Madam Chair, if I may, this is what the understandings are about this approval. And I did change number 1. I'm good. I kind of meant the Classics team anyway. So it's the Classics team, no extras. So if you're on the team, you're on the team and you go. So I changed that first one. But the rest, I think, are pretty clear in terms of understanding for this trip. After next month, it will be outside of policy, but my recommendation is we approve it with these understandings moving forward, not only for the classics, but really for any.
So we're excusing them from school?
No,
No.
parents
No.
are excusing them.
It's parent
Okay.
excused, parent requested
Parent
leave.
excused.
Number 2,
And it's the 20 kids that
20
we're
kids.
agreeing to, and
Yep.
however many chaperones that are
and
paying for
I do
themselves.
appreciate they went from 5 to 4, as we asked, and it sounds like they probably need to make some commitments tomorrow, so that's my recommendation.
So with all of those understandings, and then with the information that they presented.
Well,
So that's,
I still have a hard time with this because we have denied other groups from doing this. So just so you're aware.
But didn't we do pretty much the same thing with the other group, because it's parent excused
Yeah,
and their funding?
Yeah.
well, and with
That's how I
this,
feel about it.
and with this, you know, whoever wants to make the motion to approve or deny it, and then people can vote however you want to. I mean, I think we're just kind of, it's a situation, we just have to make a decision.
So I'm going to say something real quick. I really appreciate the comments that were made, because I had a complete misunderstanding of what was going to take place. And no fault of yours. So I'm one of those guilty parties, okay? Because based on other activities that have taken place in the past. So we've had other groups that have gone, and it's a matter of an hour or two spent behind the scenes somewhere, and then 4 or 5 days in a park. And for you to come here and explain that this is a competition and it's 3 days, I really appreciate that, because it has really swayed me on my opinion on what you're trying to do. But you made a comment earlier that these girls are involved in multiple activities. Now, if FFA comes in and says, we want to go for a week, we have band that says we want to go for a week. We have drill team that says they want to go for a week. We have all these multiple activities that come in here and they approach us and say, we need to go for a week to go to a national event. Really wreaks havoc on what we as a board, and it puts a lot of pressure on us, because we don't like saying no. Trust me, we want the best for your kids and we want them to have the best experience. But we have to watch out for everything and all the organizations and everything that's out there. So please don't take this that we're coming after the classics, because we've got a whole school district that we have to look out for. So.
Well put.
So,
Well, I will make a motion that we approve the kids going with this understanding. There you go.
I second it.
okay, any discussion? Other than what we've had?
We've had plenty.
That was an excellent presentation, in my opinion. We're all parents here. We've got grandkids. I got great-grandkids. They're in this school, so I fully understand. Been on the board for 9-10 months now. I don't have a history of other groups coming here. But that's why I second the motion to approve it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
You to add one more understanding, you have to stay for the rest of the
Yeah,
meeting.
you have to stay.
You have to attend every school board meeting for the rest of the year.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Clear out a little bit.
I'm sure they were told that. Ryan kind of prefaced it a little bit, but he just
Took the air out of that.
tear out of it.
Took the air out of it.
We're going to hear about it.
Okay, next item is approve on first reading Igdf student fundraising activity.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that you approve policy Igdf, a first reading. I will add the one suggestion of they must identify the purpose of the funds.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the IGD IGDF student fundraising activities policy at first reading.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, will you send that language? What was that, Joel? I missed, sorry.
Yes, I
Will
will.
you send that language?
Yes, I will.
The foul language or the satyr language, or what language are you looking
No,
for?
it's a simple little sentence.
I liked it, though. It was well written.
Yeah.
I didn't write it, I stole it from another district, so.
No,
If you'll
plagiarism.
send that to me, I'll get the writing a lot better.
I will. Okay, so next item for action is approve on first reading, KMB, relations with parent organizations.
Madam Chair, we recommend that you approve KMB, first reading.
Is there a motion regarding policy KMB?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So approve first reading KMB-R, formation and operation of booster clubs and similar school organizations.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we recommend that you approve the regulation KMBR for first reading. So typically, regulations don't have to be approved by the board, but I wanted to make sure you guys know where we're going. So.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve on first reading KMBR, formation and operation of booster clubs and similar school organizations?
So moved.
Second.
Mouthful.
I know, I might have to say it all. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, approve on second reading IGD, co-curricular in interscholastic activities.
Madam Chair, members of the board, recommend that you approve IGD with the changes that were discussed tonight.
Okay.
Second reading, which
Okay.
makes it official.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, approve on second reading JHCD administering medications, or medicines, sorry, to students.
The changes that you requested were added, so they did make a list of suggested medicines.
Okay.
I recommend
Suggested
that
or
you approve
approved?
it. What?
Suggested medicines or approved medicines?
The medicines that you suggested, or they suggested.
Oh, they suggested to add to the list. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, so Tylenol, Motrin, Benadryl,
Yeah.
Tums, and cough drops.
What they suggested.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve on second reading JHCD administering medicines to students?
I move to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So down to the approve the easement adjustments, so this, we've got two.
I know,
You want me to put them up?
We're voting on
One at a time.
one at a time.
Yes.
one is an easement, one's a quitclaim deed, right?
Yeah.
We're approving the quitclaim deed, we're not approving the easement.
And no action is, no action, so just don't take action. If you don't want to, you can take
Okay.
action, have a discussion, vote it down.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll move to approve the quitclaim one behind the youth club.
Right.
Okay,
I second it.
okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And down to the ESM School District City Water easement. Would anybody like to take motion?
For now, I move to disapprove until we have further discussion down the road.
Okay, there's a motion on the table.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's on that one that does not pass. Okay, down to our last item for our action, which is approve student discipline.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that you approve the discipline of the students that were identified in executive session.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on that as well. Okay, down to round table. Round up the night. It was a long meeting. Good to see people though. Any comments that you guys have going about how things are going?
One clarification, I wish that they were still here, was she brought up that Bubba was the one that told her that she couldn't do it, and wish they were in here to let them know that he was just acting on the behalf of the school board.
Yes.
That this was not something personal from him, and that in no way, shape, or form they should take it personally against our activity director because he was just acting on our behalf, so.
What he understood to be
Yes.
the policy.
Yes.
That's right.
So yes, they need to know that.
Well, and also, all of these policies that we've been going over and the things that have come about, you know, the one girl mentioned, you know, that everyone was aware that this is what the fundraising was going for. That is not the case, because I have received multiple complaints about that. So maybe that happened with her, but that definitely is not across the board, that everybody knew that that's what that fundraising was going for. And that's where I have a hard time with this, is because I think some people didn't realize that's what it was going for.
But, you know, they raised $30,000, $40,000. I mean, you raise that money, where's it going to? I mean, there's got to be a reason why they're raising $40,000, because you can't spend it in town.
You look at football and how expensive the equipment is, and that was some of the understanding with the drill team, is that they have multiple outfits.
Yeah.
I mean, different ones for each dance that they do, and they're expensive. And that was the guise that a lot of these businesses were under, that, okay, this is what this is going to help supplement, is equipment and paying for food on their trip.
I think this
things
is a
like that.
fresh start for the school district with policies moving forward. Because if it's been muddy in the past, then now it's going to be
like Dave
unmuddy.
said, it's not the athletic director. This is direction from the board, because we've been talking about this for years. This is not a new thing.
And that's the other thing I think Sponsor Spivey pointed out, it's not on her either.
No, and I'm not blaming her either.
No, none of us are, which I think is.
So brings up my next point. Can we give a directive to Mr. O'Neill or to you that there needs to be a discussion at the beginning of every year, because we change our booster presidents out every year. We have different sponsors, that this conversation needs to be had with them in a meeting prior to the beginning of the year or the end of the next year. As soon as we find out who they are, they need to be notified on what.
One thing we did ask for in the charter is president-elect.
Yes.
And hopefully that will help us. So you have a meeting with the president, current president, and president-elect. That covers 2 years. The next year, president-elect.
Okay.
We hope we don't.
Even if they got like a packet, a handout of, these are the rules.
But
This is what.
Janice Davis had a package.
Yeah, she did.
Well,
She just ignored
but they didn't have clear rules in the packet. This one is much
Well,
clearer.
she knew, trust me.
It is clear. But it is disheartening to hear that some of the rumors were that we weren't going to allow this because they didn't take first. Like that,
yeah, that has nothing
that
to do
broke
with
my
that.
heart. And so, that
never
is,
even heard that.
I hope that,
So
that rumor is totally dismissed.
I want to clarify that. It's just amazing how things get twisted. A state qualifying event, and I think that's what they were seeing this as, is we were complaining because they didn't take state, so now they can't go, and it has nothing to do with that. It's a state qualifying event, so.
So what about that new field and homecoming and all of those events? Those were so fun.
They were.
Yeah, and
It was
the school
so
district
impressive.
wasting money on the helicopters.
Which we did not pay for,
That's right.
on the
Right.
record.
Yeah.
So
That
that
was-
was such a great
That was riding in the helicopter.
fun. Yes.
Made me a little sick.
Is that why you walk so slow, huh?
You don't want to be lightheaded out.
Yeah, I don't want to throw up on the new field, so.
That's funny.
So how did you think all of the ribbon cutting and all of those events went?
I thought it went great. Really exceeded my expectations, so I was really happy about it.
And the feedback from your fellow students?
It was great.
They liked it?
Yeah, they liked it a lot.
Seemed like there was a lot of students out there for the football game and the ribbon cutting and everything.
for an afternoon game on Friday, there was a lot of people.
I really liked it.
Yeah, and I've already heard rumors about, is the Friday game the first home game, or second home game this Friday? Is it this Friday?
This Friday.
I think it's
Yes.
this Friday, yeah.
Second- Yeah,
Huh?
under the lights.
Yeah, under the lights, that's what I've heard, is everybody's looking forward, under the lights.
So I want to go out and give another big thank you to everybody who made that happen. Like, we cannot say thank you enough to everybody who put in all their hard work. It was a dream that we had for a long time, and people really, really stepped up and really did the work to make it happen, so.
And I'm sure there were sleepless nights by Mr. Dennis.
We still have a couple more before we get off.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then you also have this next one, the HRS Summit in San Antonio.
Yeah, what I have down is a definite, just from where we'll go.
Yep.
To be determined,
Right.
John, and a to be determined list. So we'll save spots for those if you want.
To be determined.
Okay, so I'll save more for the board. That's perfect.
Well, I gotta reevaluate things, you're not letting my wife go, so.
No, I didn't say she couldn't go, remember?
You have to pay for it.
I have to pay for it. I'm fine with that. I'll pay for her to go.
He just doesn't want to room with you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank, yes.
Just really quickly, if you haven't gotten up there, sod was laid.
Yeah,
Half
grass
this
is in.
morning. You need to get up there.
It
That
looks
sod
great.
just
It just,
really.
Oh, awesome.
I was going to, but this meeting has gone on for 4 hours now, so I don't think.
Lights on, so
Yes, yes, please do.
they'll be finishing the sod up
Me too.
tomorrow. So the sod up on that hillside, but it really kind of finishes that off. They got the rest, most of 90% of the slats there on the south side done, so things are really.
yeah, looks good.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
Yep.
Well, thanks everybody for a great meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Where was
Third.
school reports? Are we doing away with school reports? Or is it
We're doing the, it's a focus on the PLCs for
Yeah.
now. That's what they.
Well, why am I asking you? You're leaving. So what was that about?
No.